I choose you, please don't say no.
Let me tell you about the worst decision I've ever made. And trust me, I've made some spectacularly terrible decisions. Like the time I agreed to cut my own bangs at 2 a.m. after watching a YouTube tutorial. Or when I tried to make homemade kimchi in my studio apartment and nearly got evicted because my neighbors thought something had died in the walls. Or that one time I thought I could totally handle wearing 6-inch stilettos to an all-day outdoor festival. Well, turns out that I couldn't. But this decision I just took. This makes all of those previous actions of mine look like Nobel Prize-winning choices. 48 hours ago, I signed a contract to compete on a reality TV show called The Royal Selection. 30 women will be competing for the heart of Crown Prince Young-min of Hanseong, a tiny but obscenely wealthy Asian kingdom that most Americans couldn't find on a map, even if you gave them 3 tries and a GPS. Oh, and did I mention that Prince Young is also Korea's biggest movie star? Yeah, that Prince Young, the one who made women worldwide lose their minds in the movie Soul Serenade and The King's Gambit. The man with the face that launched 1,000 thirst tweets. The same person that People magazine called the world's most beautiful man 3 years running. And here's the absolute kicker, the part that proves I've completely lost my mind. I didn't even apply for this show. My best friend Shanice filled out my application as a joke while I was in the bathroom during our brunch date. She thought it would be hilarious. She even said that there was 0 chance I'd get selected, and I believed her. But she was catastrophically wrong. Now I'm standing in a Lowe's Angels Hotel ballroom, wearing a dress that would have me working the rest of my life to afford it, surrounded by 29 women who look like they were genetically engineered in a lab to look perfect. And we are about to meet a prince who, according to the 37-page NDA I signed, doesn't actually want to get married, doesn't want to be on this show, and would rather be literally anywhere else on the planet. But before we get into how I ended up in this absolute circus, I need to know, where in the world are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button because this story is about to get wild. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Charlie Baptiste, you are officially pathetic, a voice called out. I looked up from my phone to find Shanice Montgomery, my best friend since freshman year of college, current roommate, and person most likely to tell me the truth even when I desperately didn't want to hear it, staring at me with the kind of concern usually reserved for interventions. I'm not pathetic, I tried to say defensively. You've looked at your ex's Instagram 17 times in the last hour. I know because I've been counting. And before you try to deny it, I can see your phone screen reflection in your water glass. I set my phone down on the table with more force than necessary. I wasn't, okay, fine, maybe I was, but it's not my fault Terrence keeps posting these ridiculously happy photos with his new girlfriend. Look at this one there at Disneyland. Who goes to Disneyland when you're 30? That's not even romantic. That's just showing off. Baby girl. Shanice reached across the table and gently pushed my phone even further away from me. You need to stop. He's not worth it. He wasn't worth it when you were together, and he's definitely not worth it now that he's dating someone who unironically wears Mickey Mouse ears. I know that. Logically, I know that. But emotionally. Emotionally, you're still stuck on the fact that you wasted 3 years on a man who didn't appreciate you, didn't respect you, and definitely didn't deserve you. She wasn't wrong. Terrence Williams had been my boyfriend for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not that I was counting. We'd met at a marketing conference. He was in finance, I was in social media management, and for a while it had been good. Great, even, until it wasn't. Until I realized I was doing all the emotional labor, making all the compromises, shrinking myself to fit into his vision of what a girlfriend should be. And when I finally called him out on it, when I finally asked for more, he'd looked at me like I was being unreasonable and said, "You know what, Charlie? You're exhausting. Being with you is exhausting." Then he'd broken up with me via text message. Yeah, that's typical Terrence. I just don't understand, I said, picking at my avocado toast without actually eating it. What does she have that I don't have? Shanice gave me the look, the one that said she was about to deliver some tough love whether I wanted it or not. Sweetie, look at yourself. I am looking at myself. That's the problem. No, really, look. She pulled out her phone, opened the camera app, switched it to selfie mode, and shoved it in my face. Tell me what you see. I sighed and looked at the screen. Same face I'd been looking at for 28 years. Heart-shaped, with a complexion my grandmother used to call honey-kissed. High cheekbones that I'd inherited from my mother's side. Full lips that I'd learned to accentuate with the right lip liner. And my eyes, God, my eyes, bright green, the kind of vivid, almost unnatural green that made people stop mid-sentence and ask if they were real if I was wearing colored contacts. I'd gotten them from my father's side, apparently. Never met the man, he'd bounced before I was even born, but according to my mother, he'd had the same eyes. The same witch eyes, as my grandmother used to call them affectionately. My hair was currently in its natural state, voluminous curls that I'd spent 2 hours coaxing into perfect definition this morning. They fell past my shoulders in spirals that caught the light, a mixture of browns and coppers and blacks depending on how the sun hit them. I was wearing a simple black wrap dress that Shanice had forced me to buy last month, claiming it showed off my assets in a way that was classy but still dangerous. Whatever that meant. All I knew was that the dress hugged my curves, the hourglass figure I'd spent most of my 20s being self-conscious about, until Shanice had staged a one-woman intervention involving 3 bottles of wine and a PowerPoint presentation titled, "Why Charlie Needs to Stop Apologizing for Her Body." I see me, I said finally. Wrong. You see a gorgeous, intelligent, funny, talented woman who has absolutely no idea how stunning she is. You know what Terrence's new girlfriend has that you don't? A smaller ass, I asked curiously. Lower standards. Shanice grabbed her phone before I could protest. And you know what you need? A palate cleanser. A reminder that there are literally millions of men out there who would be lucky, blessed, even to date you. I don't need to date anyone. I need to heal, process, maybe get a cat. You're allergic to cats. Fine, a fish. A really low-maintenance fish that won't judge me for eating ice cream in bed. Shanice wasn't listening. She was tapping furiously on her phone, that dangerous gleam in her eye that had historically preceded every bad decision in our 15-year friendship. Oh my God, she breathed. Oh my God, Charlie, this is it. This is a sign from the universe. What are you? I started, but she was already shoving her phone in my face. On the screen was an Instagram ad for something called the Royal Selection. The production value was insane, all sweeping shots of a palace, romantic music, and text that proclaimed, Crown Prince Di-Young-min of Hanseong is searching for his future princess. Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime? Apply now for the Royal Selection, a televised competition where 30 extraordinary women will compete for the ultimate prize. A crown, a kingdom, and true love with the world's most eligible bachelor. There was a video. Of course there was a video. I watched as Prince Di-Young, yes, THAT Prince Di-Young, the actor who'd made me question my life choices during every one of his movies, walked through an ornate palace in slow motion, looking like he'd been photoshopped by the gods themselves. Absolutely not, I said. Absolutely yes. Shanice, no. Shanice, yes, think about it. You love his movies. You've watched Soul Serenade like 40 times. 32 times, and that's not the point. You literally cried during the rain scene. You told me it was the most romantic thing you'd ever seen. That was the character, not the actual person. There's a difference. A difference that could be erased if you applied to this show. She was already typing on her phone. Oh my God, this is perfect. You're gorgeous, you're smart, you're funny. I have student loan debt, and I still sleep with a stuffed animal. Mister. Whiskers is a comfort object and totally normal for someone with your attachment issues. Don't change the subject. She kept typing. When was the last time you did something exciting, something spontaneous, something that didn't involve watching Korean dramas and eating hot Cheetos when caught up in your feelings? Well, last week I tried a new flavor of hot Cheetos. Charlie, I'm filling out your application. My stomach dropped. You're what? I'm filling out your application. They need photos, so I'm using the ones from my sister's wedding where you looked like an actual goddess. And I may have to embellish slightly on the hobbies section. What does that mean? It means I'm putting down that you're fluent in Korean. I know like 15 words from watching too much K-drama. That you volunteer at a children's hospital. I follow St. Jude's on Instagram. And that you once saved a puppy from a burning building. SHANIC. What? You helped Mrs. Chen get her dog out of her apartment when the fire alarm went off. The alarm was malfunctioning, there was no fire, and the dog walked out on its own. She waved her hand dismissively. Details. The point is, you're incredible and any prince would be lucky to have you. Plus, think about it, even if you don't win, you get an all-expenses-paid trip, a complete designer wardrobe, and exposure that could seriously boost your social media consulting business. I don't want exposure. I want to process my breakup in peace. You've been processing for 6 months. It's time to move on. She was still typing. Besides, you're not going to get picked anyway. They get thousands of applications. This is just to get you thinking about putting yourself out there again. Baby steps. I really don't think. Application submitted. I stared at her. You what? Submitted, done, in the universe's hands now. She set down her phone with a satisfied smile. See, don't you feel better already? I feel like I need new friends. You love me. That's debatable right now, I returned. You don't know it yet, Charlie, Shanna said smiling, grabbing my hands, but I feel you would someday say thank you to me for signing you up. 72 hours later, I got a phone call that would change my life. I was at work, a small digital marketing agency in downtown LA, where I managed social media accounts for clients ranging from boutique skincare brands to local restaurants. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, most of the time. My phone rang just as I was about to head into a meeting. Unknown number, LA area code. I almost didn't answer, but something, call it intuition, call it fate, call it stupidity, made me pick up. Hello. Is this Charlotte Baptiste? The voice was female, British accent, professionally cheerful in that way that usually meant either a scam or very good news. Yes, who's this? This is Vivienne Park, casting director for the Royal Selection. First of all, congratulations. You've been selected as one of our final 30 contestants. I dropped my phone. When I picked it up again, she was still talking. Pack for 6 weeks of filming. We'll provide your wardrobe, of course, but you'll want to bring personal items, photos from home, that sort of thing. We're flying all contestants to Los Angeles for preliminary interviews and styling before we head to Hanseong for the main filming. You'll be staying at the Beverly Wilshire, all expenses paid, naturally. Now I know this is sudden. I can't do this, I blurted out. Silence. I'm sorry. I can't do this, I didn't even apply. My friend applied as a joke. I don't want to compete for a husband on television, or any husband. Especially not a prince. I'm just a social media manager. I wear sweatpants to work half the time. I can't. Ms. Baptiste. Her voice was kind but firm. I understand this is overwhelming, but I should mention that every contestant receives a $75,000 appearance fee. Everything stopped. What? $75,000, just for participating, plus luxury accommodations, a complete designer wardrobe, and if you make it to the final 10, an additional $50,000. The winner receives the crown and the prince, obviously, but everyone who participates receives compensation. $75,000. That was my student loans. That was the money I'd been trying to save for a down payment on a condo. That was actual, life-changing, could finally breathe money. I couldn't form words. You don't have to decide right now. Take 24 hours. Think about it. Call your family, your friends, but Ms. Baptiste, we selected you for a reason. Your application stood out. You're exactly what this show needs. What does that mean? It means you're real, authentic. The viewers are going to love you. Prince Young is going to love you. He doesn't even know me. Not yet, but I have a feeling he will. She hung up. I stood in the hallway of my office building, phone in hand, trying to remember how to breathe. $75,000. To compete on a reality show. For a prince. A Korean prince who was also a movie star. This was insane. This was ridiculous. I called Shanice. She answered on the first ring. Did they call you? How did you know? They called me too, for a reference check. Charlie, you got selected. You're going to be on TV. You're going to meet Prince Young. You're going to. I'm going to have a panic attack. No, you're going to take 3 deep breaths, and then you're going to call them back and say yes. Shanice, I can't. I work in social media. Do you know what happens to reality TV contestants on social media? They get destroyed, torn apart. I've seen people get death threats for not liking the same pizza toppings as the lead. I can't. $75,000, she repeated, ignoring everything I just said. I stopped mid-spiral. That's your student loans, Shanice continued. That's freedom. That's security. That's the ability to finally quit that job you hate and start your own consulting business like you've been talking about for 2 years. I don't hate my job. You called your boss, a sentient khaki pant, last week. I was having a bad day. Charlie, her voice softened. I know you're scared. I know this is outside your comfort zone. But when was the last time you did something just for you? Something exciting, something that wasn't safe and predictable. Safe and predictable is good. Safe and predictable is how you ended up with Terrence for 3 years. Low blow, but effective. What if I make a fool of myself? I asked quietly. Then you make a fool of yourself with $75,000 in your bank account, which, let's be honest, is way better than making a fool of yourself for free. I laughed despite myself. That's your argument. That's my argument. Plus, and hear me out, Prince Young is fine as hell. Like objectively, scientifically. If you're going to embarrass yourself on national television, at least do it in front of someone who looks like a Greek god had a baby with a K-pop idol. That's not how genetics work. You know what I mean. So what's it going to be? You going to let fear win? Or are you going to take a chance on something amazing? I thought about my life. My safe, predictable, comfortable life. My studio apartment with the leaky faucet I kept meaning to fix. My job that paid the bills but didn't excite me. My social life that consisted mainly of binge-watching Netflix with Shanice and occasionally going to happy hour with coworkers I didn't particularly like. My life was fine. Safe. Exactly what I'd built after the chaos of my childhood. Single mom working 3 jobs, never knowing if we'd make rent, moving every few years when we got evicted. But was fine really enough. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay, what? Okay, I'll do it. Shanice screamed so loud, I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Oh my God, Charlie, you're doing it. You're actually doing it. I'm so proud of you. This is going to be amazing. You're going to. I'm probably going to regret this. Probably, but you're doing it anyway. That's growth, baby. I hung up and immediately called Vivienne back. Ms. Park, it's Charlie Baptiste. I'll do it, I'm in. I could practically hear her smile through the phone. Excellent decision, Ms. Baptiste. I'll send over the contracts and NDAs immediately. Welcome to the royal selection. Your life is about to change. She had no idea how right she was. 1 week later, I was standing in a conference room at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, surrounded by 29 women who looked like they'd been photoshopped into existence. There was Amber Dennis, a pharmaceutical sales rep from Dallas with the kind of thick, glossy black hair that defied physics and probably had its own Instagram account. Madison Cooper, a kindergarten teacher from Portland who had the wholesome girl next door thing down to a science and definitely made her own granola. Tatyana Volkov, a Russian model who was literally 6 feet tall without heels and had bone structure that could cut glass. And then there was Kennedy St. James. Kennedy St. James, who had already introduced herself to everyone as heir to the St. James Hotel fortune, who was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and who had looked me up and down when I'd walked in and said, in a voice dripping with false sweetness, "Oh, how interesting. I didn't realize they were going for diversity this season." The way she said diversity made it very clear what she meant. I'd smiled my brightest, most professional smile, the one I used for difficult clients, and said, I didn't realize they were going for generic pretty rich girls, but here we are. Nice to meet you, Kennedy. Her smile had frozen. She hadn't spoken to me since. Small victories. Now we were all gathered for what Vivienne called the orientation session. She stood at the front of the room wearing a tailored designer black suit, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, looking like Anna Wintour's slightly less terrifying younger sister. Ladies, she clapped her hands once, and the room fell silent immediately. Welcome to the royal selection. For the next 6 weeks, you will be competing for the heart and hand of Crown Prince Di Young-min of Hanseong. But before we begin, let's go over the ground rules. She clicked a remote, and a screen descended from the ceiling. Rule number 1, absolute confidentiality. The NDA you signed is legally binding. Any disclosure of production details, private conversations, or behind-the-scenes information will result in a $5 million penalty and immediate legal action. A few women gasped. I tried not to panic. I have never seen $5 million before in my entire life. Rule number 2, no outside contact. All phones and devices have been collected and will be returned at the end of filming. You'll have supervised video calls home once per week. No exceptions. This was going to be torture. I checked my phone more than I checked my reflection, which was normal considering my job was on social media. Rule number 3, respect the process. This is a competition, yes, but it's also a journey. Prince Di Young is genuinely looking for a partner. We expect authenticity, vulnerability, and a sincere effort to connect. I raised my hand before I could stop myself. Vivienne's expression suggested this was not the time for questions. Yes, Ms. Baptiste. Quick question. What if some of us aren't actually looking for a partner? What if some of us are just here for the money? You could have heard a pin drop. 29 heads swiveled to stare at me. Kennedy's expression suggested she just watched me commit murder. Vivienne's smile could have frozen the sun. Then those contestants won't last very long, will they? Right, cool, just checking. The woman next to me, beautiful with rich brown skin and incredible bone structure, leaned over and whispered, "Girl, you cannot just say that out loud." Why not? It's true. Because this is television. We're all pretending we're here for love and magic and fairy tale endings. Even though we're all actually here for the money and Instagram followers. She grinned. Exactly. I'm Kimberly, by the way. I'm from Atlanta. You? Charlie, LA. Well, originally Brooklyn, but I've been in LA for 5 years. I like you. You're going to get eaten alive by these women, but I like you. That's comforting. Stick with me. I've watched every season of every dating show ever made. I know how this works. How does it work? Lots of tears, lots of drama, lots of women saying they're not here to make friends while actively trying to make friends. Plus, at least 3 people will get drunk and make out with someone who's not the prince. It's tradition. Before I could respond, Vivienne clapped again. Ladies, one more thing. Tonight, you'll have your first meeting with Prince Di Young. Individual introductions, 3 minutes each. Make them count. The first elimination happens tomorrow night. 10 of you will go home. 10 out of 30. My mouth went dry. I recommend you spend the rest of the day preparing. Hair and makeup teams are available. Wardrobe is already in your rooms. And ladies, Vivienne's smile was sharp. Make it memorable. The prince has a very discerning eye. 6 hours later, I was standing in what can only be described as a closet straight out of a dream. My hotel room had been transformed. The closet, which was roughly the size of my entire studio apartment, was now filled with designer clothes. Dresses, gowns, casual wear, evening wear, all perfectly organized by color and occasion. This is insane, I muttered, running my hand along a rack of what appeared to be exclusively designer labels. Versace, Gucci, Balmain, Eli Saab, brands I'd only ever seen in magazines or on red carpets. Girl, this is gorgeous. I turned to find Kimberly standing in my doorway, her eyes wide as she took in the closet situation. Please tell me your room looks like this too, I said. Oh, it does. I've been playing dress up for the last hour, but I wanted to see what they gave you. She walked into the closet, started flipping through dresses. Okay, so for tonight's introduction, you need something that says I'm stunning but approachable, confident but not threatening, sexy but classy. That's a lot of messages for one dress. Welcome to reality TV, honey. She pulled out a dress in deep emerald green. This is the one. The dress was stunning, sleeveless, with a fitted bodice and a skirt that hugged curves I didn't even know I had. The color was exactly the shade of my eyes. I can't wear that. Why not? Because I'll look like I'm trying too hard. You're competing for a prince. Everyone is trying too hard. The question is whether you're trying hard in a good way or a desperate way. She held the dress up to me. This is good way, trust me. 3 hours later, after hair, makeup, and a minor existential crisis about what I was doing with my life, I was wearing the dress. My natural curls had been styled into perfect spirals that cascaded over my shoulders. My makeup was flawless but not overdone, subtle contouring, a nude lip that made the green even more striking. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. You look like a princess already, the makeup artist, a sweet woman named Sophie, said with genuine warmth. Prince Young is going to lose his mind. Or not even notice me. There are 29 other women. Honey, trust me, he's going to notice. The ballroom where we were meeting Prince Young looked like something out of a high-class drama. Crystal chandeliers, gold accents everywhere, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the LA skyline, cameras positioned at strategic angles to catch every moment. We were lined up in order. I was number 23, watching as one by one, women approached the prince for their 3-minute introduction. And then I saw him. Prince Min. Photos didn't do him justice. Videos didn't do him justice. Even his movies, which I'd watched approximately 32 times, didn't do him justice. He was 6'3" of perfect proportions and impossible beauty. His face was all elegant lines and sharp angles, high cheekbones that could cut glass, a strong jaw, a nose that was somehow both masculine and refined. His eyes were dark, intense, framed by lashes that were criminally long. His hair was styled in that effortlessly perfect way that probably took an hour and a team of professionals, but looked like he'd just run his fingers through it. He was wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my car, and even from across the room, I could see the definition in his shoulders, his chest, his arms. The man was built like a Greek god had been crossed with a K-pop idol, and the result was almost offensive in its perfection. But he looked absolutely miserable, like he didn't want to be here. Contestant 23, a production assistant called. Charlie Baptiste, you're up. I took a breath, smoothed down my dress, and walked across the ballroom toward where Prince Young stood, surrounded by cameras and crew. Up close, he was even more devastating, and even more clearly unhappy. Hello, I said, offering my hand. I'm Charlie. He took my hand. His grip was firm, his hand warm, and gave me what was clearly a practiced smile. Young, it's nice to meet you. His voice was deeper than I expected, rich, with just a hint of an accent that made every word sound intentional. We stood there for an awkward moment, hands still clasped, both clearly waiting for the other to speak first. So, I finally said, because someone had to break the silence, this is weird, right? His eyebrows rose slightly. Weird. Yeah, I mean, you're contractually obligated to pretend you're excited about meeting 30 strangers who are competing for your hand, like we're in a Victorian novel. And I'm contractually obligated to pretend I didn't just agree to compete for a husband on TV primarily for the $75,000 appearance fee. So, weird. For a moment, he just stared at me. I couldn't read his expression. Then something shifted. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. You're honest, he said. I'm terrible at lying. My face gives everything away. It's a real problem in my line of work. Which is? Social media management. I convince brands to sound less corporate and more human. It's like being a professional translator, except instead of languages, I'm translating between executive speak and how actual humans talk. This time, he did smile, just a little, just enough to make my stomach do something complicated. And yet you're here, competing for a crown. And yet I'm here, competing for a crown. I paused. Can I be honest about something else? Please. You look like you'd rather be literally anywhere else right now. Like if someone offered you a root canal without anesthesia as an alternative to this, you'd seriously consider it. His smile widened, not the practiced, camera-ready smile from before. This one was real. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, less like an untouchable prince and more like an actual person. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's also desperately uncomfortable. Takes one to know one. You don't seem uncomfortable. I'm very good at faking it. Years of dealing with difficult clients. You develop a poker face or you die. Time, a production assistant called. We both jumped slightly. I'd completely forgotten we were being filmed. I gestured vaguely toward the other contestants. Yes, of course, but he didn't let go of my hand immediately. 0bsessed. That's me. You're either going to be the most refreshing person I meet tonight, or you're going to give the producers a heart attack. Why not both? He laughed, actually laughed. It was a good laugh, warm and genuine, and several of the other contestants audibly gasped. I look forward to getting to know you better, he said. And the way he said it made me think he actually meant it. That night, after all 30 introductions were complete, they gathered us in the ballroom for the first rose ceremony. The format was simple. Prince Young would call out names. If you got a rose, you stayed. If you didn't, you went home. He stood on a small platform with 30 long-stemmed roses in silver vases, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Tonight, he said, reading from what was clearly a teleprompter, I'll give roses to the women I'd like to continue getting to know. If I call your name, please come accept this rose. If you don't receive a rose, I'm sorry, but this is goodbye. He started calling names. Amber, Madison, Tatiana, Kennedy, who shot me a smug look as she accepted her rose. Kimberly, thank God. 20 names in, and I still hadn't been called. I tried to keep my face neutral, but inside I was spiraling. Okay, fine, I'd be eliminated first. I'd go home with just the appearance fee, no bonus for making it to the top 10. Shanice would be disappointed. I'd have to face everyone at work knowing I'd been rejected on national TV. My mother would pretend she wasn't relieved, but would definitely be relieved because she'd never understood why I'd agreed to this in the first place. 0bsessed. I looked up. Prince Young was holding the second-to-last rose, looking directly at me with those intense dark eyes. Charlie, will you accept this rose? I walked up to the platform on legs that felt disconnected from my body. Yes, I said, taking the rose. I accept. His hand brushed mine as I took it, and I felt that touch all the way down to my toes. Don't make me regret keeping you, he said quietly, so only I could hear. Wouldn't dream of it, Your Highness. It's just Young, please. Then it's just Charlie. He held my gaze for a moment too long, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Curiosity, maybe, or interest. Then I was walking back to my spot, rose in hand, trying not to hyperventilate. 10 women were eliminated, 20 remained. And somehow, impossibly, I was one of them. The flight to Hanseong was on a private plane that made me question every life choice that had led me to flying commercial. Leather seats that reclined into actual beds. A flight attendant whose sole job seemed to be making sure our champagne glasses never got below half full. Food that was actually good, not good for airplane food, but actually genuinely delicious. I could get used to this, Kimberly said, sprawled across her seatbed with a glass of champagne in one hand and chocolate-covered strawberries in the other. Like, I might need to marry a prince just for the travel benefits. That's the most honest thing anyone said this entire trip, I replied. We'd been divided into groups for the flight, the 20 remaining contestants plus crew. I'd ended up seated near Kimberly, thank God, which meant at least I had one ally in this chaos. Kennedy St. James was 3 rows ahead, holding court with a group of women who'd already formed what Kimberly was calling the Mean Girls Alliance. Madison, the kindergarten teacher, was reading a book on Korean culture, because of course she was. Tatiana, the model, was asleep, looking like a sleeping beauty even with her mouth slightly open. And I was trying not to freak out about the fact that I was flying to an actual foreign country to compete for an actual prince, who was also an actual movie star. "Can I ask you something?" Kimberly said, turning to look at me. "And be real with me." "Always." "Why are you really here? And don't say the money. I mean, yes, the money, but why really?" I thought about it. Honestly, because I was stuck. 6 months ago, my boyfriend of 3 years broke up with me via text while I was at my grandmother's funeral. And instead of processing that in a healthy way, I just froze. Kept going to the same job I don't love, kept living in the same tiny apartment, kept doing the same things. And my best friend applied to this show without telling me because she knew I'd never have the courage to do it myself. And now I'm on a private plane to a foreign country to compete for a prince, which is either the bravest thing I've ever done or the most insane. Jury's still out. "For what it's worth," Kimberly said, "I think it's brave. Insane, yes, but also brave." "What about you? Why are you here?" She grinned. "Because I'm an influencer with 200,000 followers who's been trying to break into the big leagues for years. This show is exposure I couldn't buy. Plus," she lowered her voice, "I'm actually kind of hopping to find love. Stupid, right?" "Not stupid. Hopeful, there's a difference." "What about with Young? You felt a spark?" I thought about those 3 minutes. The way he'd looked at me when I'd been honest. The way his smile had transformed his face. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell what's real when there are 12 cameras pointed at you. "Girl, let me tell you something." Kimberly leaned in conspiratorially. "I saw the way he looked at you during that rose ceremony. That was not a "I'm keeping you for the show" look. That was an "I'm intrigued" look. You're reading too much into it. And you're not reading enough into it. Trust your girl. That man is interested. Before I could argue, Vivienne's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies, we'll be landing in Hanseong in approximately 20 minutes. Upon arrival, you'll be taken directly to Gyeongseong Palace, where you'll be staying for the duration of filming. Please gather your belongings and prepare for landing." Gyeongseong Palace. An actual palace. I was going to be staying in an actual palace. This was my life now. Gyeongseong Palace was not what I expected. I'd expected something old, traditional, maybe a bit dusty. What I got was a sprawling complex of buildings that mixed traditional Korean architecture with modern luxury in a way that shouldn't have worked, but absolutely did. The main palace building was traditional, curved roofs, ornate details, the kind of structure that looked like it belonged in a history book. But behind it were modern additions, glass and steel structures that somehow complemented rather than clashed with the traditional architecture. "Holy shit," I whispered as our bus pulled through the gates. "Right," Kimberly was pressed against the window like a kid at Disneyland. "This is insane. We're staying here." We were led through the palace grounds by staff members in traditional Korean dress, past gardens that looked like they'd been designed by landscape architects with unlimited budgets and too much time. Our accommodations were in the modern wing. A building that looked like a 5-star hotel had been transported into the middle of a historical site. Each of us had our own room, thank God, because I was going to need privacy to process whatever the hell was about to happen. My room was stunning. Traditional Korean design elements mixed with modern luxury, sliding doors, a bed that looked like a cloud, a bathroom that was bigger than my entire studio apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the palace gardens. On the bed was a note in elegant script. "Welcome to Gyeongseong Palace. Dinner tonight at 8 p.m. in the main hall. Dress code, formal, looking forward to getting to know you better. D. Young. Wow, does that mean that I was going to have dinner with a prince? Might as well get used to this kind of treatment." The dress they'd left for me was traditional Korean, a cream-colored hanbok with gold embroidery that looked like it had been hand-stitched by artisans. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever worn. Kimberly appeared at my door at 7:45, wearing a hanbok in midnight blue. "We match," she said. "Well, coordinate, whatever. Point is we look amazing. ready to go have dinner with a prince. No, absolutely not. I'm about to have a panic attack. Breathe. You survived the first elimination. You can survive dinner. What if I use the wrong fork? What if I offend someone? What if I accidentally start a diplomatic incident? Then you'll be memorable. That's what matters. The main hall was breathtaking. Traditional architecture, high ceilings, wooden beams, paper lanterns providing soft lighting. In the center was a long table set for 21, the 20 remaining contestants plus Prince Di-young at the head. He was already there when we arrived, standing near his seat, wearing traditional Korean dress that made him look like he'd stepped out of a historical drama. The black and gold hanbok emphasized his height, his build, the sharp lines of his face. And he looked directly at me when I walked in. "Charlie," he said, and I was absurdly pleased that he remembered my name. "You look beautiful. The hanbok suits you." "Thank you, Di-young, you look," I searched for words. "Very prince-like." His lips twitched. "Prince-like?" "Yes, it's a word I just invented. It means you look exactly how people imagine princes should look, except more so." He smiled, that real smile that transformed his face, and gestured to the seat directly to his right. "Please, sit here." Kennedy St. James, who'd been making a beeline for that exact seat, stopped mid-stride. Her expression suggested she'd just watched me commit murder. I sat. Dinner was a traditional Korean meal, multiple courses, each more elaborate than the last. Everything was delicious, but I was too nervous to eat much. Plus, I was hyper-aware of Di-young sitting next to me, occasionally asking questions in that deep, measured voice. "Tell me about your work," he said during the third course. "Social media management, that's an interesting field." "It's interesting when you frame it that way. Most people say, so you post things on Instagram all day. Like it's not a real job." But it is a real job. Very real. Someone has to convince corporations to stop sounding like robots. Might as well be me. "Do you enjoy it?" "Sometimes, when I have good clients who actually listen, when I can be creative, when I'm not just fighting with executives who think they know better than me because they have a personal Facebook account." He laughed. "That sounds frustrating." "It is, but the money's steady and I'm good at it, so," I shrugged. "What about you? Do you enjoy princing?" "Princing?" "Yeah, princing. Running a country, making important decisions, wearing crowns, the whole situation." He paused and something flickered across his face. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" He looked at me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether to be honest. "Can I tell you something? Off the record." "I'm not a reporter. I'm a contestant. There's no record." "I never wanted this," he said quietly. "The crown, the kingdom, the responsibility. I wanted to act, to create art, to tell stories. But my father died, and suddenly I was crown prince and everyone expected me to be grateful, to be honored." "But you weren't." "No, I was angry, resentful. I felt like my life had been stolen." "And now?" "Now I'm doing my duty, because that's what princes do, even when we don't want to." Before I could respond, Kennedy's voice cut through the conversation from across the table. "Your Highness," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness, "I have to ask, is it true that Hanseong has been experiencing economic difficulties? I read something about declining trade with neighboring countries." The entire table went quiet. Di-young's expression shuddered. "That's not an appropriate dinner conversation." "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just thought, since we might potentially be your future princess, we should understand the political situation." "What Kennedy means," I interrupted, "is that we're all very impressed by how you've been handling the transition to crown prince. Stepping into leadership at your age can't be easy, especially while maintaining your acting career." Kennedy shot me a look that could have curdled milk. Di-young's expression softened slightly. "Thank you, Charlie. It's been an adjustment." "I can imagine. It's like being thrown into the deep end of a pool when you weren't planning to swim, except the pool is an entire country and everyone's watching to see if you drown." I finished calmly. "That's actually a very accurate description," he returned, sounding impressed. "I'm good at metaphors. Terrible at most other things but metaphors. I've got those down. He smiled again, and I realized I was becoming addicted to making him smile, to seeing that transformation from serious, burdened prince to actual human being. The rest of dinner passed without incident, mostly because I kept steering conversation away from anything that might be politically sensitive and toward topics like favorite movies, terrible childhood haircuts, and whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. It doesn't, and I will die on this hill. By the time dessert arrived, Di-young was actually laughing, really laughing, at something I'd said about my disastrous attempt to learn Korean from K-dramas. You can't learn a language from television, he said. You can say that again. I once tried to order food in a Korean restaurant using only phrases from Crash Landing on You. The waiter was very confused. I think I accidentally proposed marriage to him. You what? In my defense, the pronunciation is tricky, and the subtitles don't help with context. He was still laughing when Vivienne approached the table. Ladies, gentlemen, she said, tomorrow we begin our first group date. Everyone will participate. Prince Di-young will be evaluating compatibility in a unique setting. What kind of setting? Madison asked. Vivienne's smile was mysterious. You'll see. Wear comfortable clothes and be prepared to get a little dirty. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my palatial bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I'd had dinner with a prince. I'd made a prince laugh, multiple times. I'd accidentally saved him from Kennedy's weird political ambush. And more than that, I'd seen him. The real him. Not the prince, not the actor, but the person underneath. The guy who didn't want this life, who felt trapped by duty and expectation. I understood that. God, did I understand that? My phone buzzed, given them back for tonight only, supervised to call home. It was Shanice, FaceTiming. Charlie, she screamed the second I answered. How is it? What's he like? Did you talk to him? Did he notice you? Tell me everything. It's insane. Shanice, he's real, like an actual person, not just some untouchable prince. Did you have a moment? I thought about the conversation at dinner, the way he'd looked at me when I'd made him laugh. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to tell what's real when there are cameras everywhere. Girl, forget the cameras. Did you feel something? I paused. Maybe I did. Oh my God, you like him, you actually like him. I don't know if I like him, he's interesting, and he seems lonely, and I want to make him smile again. That's called liking someone, babe. This is a terrible idea. The best romances always are. It's reality TV, it's not real. Your feelings are real, that's what matters. After we hung up, I lay in bed, thinking about Di-young's smile, his laugh, the way he'd looked at me when I'd understood what he wasn't saying. This was supposed to be about money, about the experience, about pushing myself outside my comfort zone. When had it become about him? The next morning, I was woken up at 6 a.m. by a knock on my door that sounded like someone was trying to break through with a battering ram. Charlie, get up, Kimberly's voice way too chipper for this hour. Group date starts in an hour. I rolled over and pulled the pillow over my head. Go away, I'm dead. You're not dead, you're just not a morning person. There's a difference. Now get up before I come in there. The door's locked. I have a key. Vivienne gave it to me. She said, and I quote, make sure Charlie doesn't sleep through the first group date. She's good television. I sat up. She said I'm good television. She said you're great television. Apparently the footage from dinner last night is gold. Her words. Now come on. We're doing some kind of outdoor activity and I need my buddy. 20 minutes later, after the fastest shower of my life and throwing on the comfortable clothes they'd laid out for us, I was standing in the palace courtyard with 19 other women, all of whom looked significantly more awake than me. Di-young was already there, wearing jeans and a simple black t-shirt that should have been casual but somehow looked like a fashion shoot. How did he make normal clothes look like that? Good morning, he said, and I was gratified to see he also looked a little tired. I hope everyone slept well. Like a baby, Kennedy chirped. She was wearing designer athletic wear that probably cost more than my rent. Of course. Wonderful. Today, we're doing something a bit different. Something that's very important in Korean culture and very important to me personally. He paused for dramatic effect. We're going to learn traditional Korean archery. Several women perked up. A few looked nervous. Madison, the kindergarten teacher, looked like she'd just been told we were going to pet puppies. Archery, Tatiana asked, like with the bows and arrows. Exactly like that. Korean archery gukgung has been practiced for thousands of years. It requires focus, discipline, and respect. Today, you'll learn the basics, and at the end, we'll have a small competition. What does the winner get? Kennedy asked immediately. Di-young's smile was mysterious. A private dinner with me, tonight, just the two of us. Every woman in that courtyard immediately stood up straighter. A private date, with the prince, away from cameras and other contestants. Oh, this was about to get competitive. Korean archery, it turns out, is significantly harder than it looks in movies. We were divided into groups of 4, each with an instructor who spoke varying degrees of English. My instructor was a woman named Jai-woo who was approximately 60 years old, 4 feet 11 inches tall, and could probably kill me with her bare hands. Stance is everything, she said in perfect, clipped English. You stand wrong, you shoot wrong, you shoot wrong, you embarrass yourself and dishonor your ancestors. No pressure, I muttered. Kimberly, who was in my group, snorted. You, Jai-woo pointed at me, show me your stance. I tried to remember what I'd seen in movies. Feet apart, or together, 1 foot forward. I ended up in something that probably looked like I was about to do the cha-cha slide. Jai-woo's expression suggested I had personally offended her, her family, and possibly the entire nation of Korea. No, like this. She demonstrated, feet shoulder-width apart, body sideways to the target, weight evenly distributed. It looked simple. It was not simple. After 20 minutes of Jai-woo correcting my stance, my grip, my breathing, and possibly my entire approach to life, I was finally allowed to try shooting. I pulled back the bowstring, which was significantly harder than it looked, aimed at the target approximately 30 feet away, and released. The arrow went sideways. Not toward the target, not even in the general direction of the target. Sideways, it nearly hit Madison, who was practicing 2 spots over. Sorry, I called out. So sorry. Focus, Jai-woo barked. You are thinking too much. Stop thinking, feel. Feel what? The bow, the arrow, the target, they are all connected. You are the connection. That's very zen, but I'm not sure it's helping. Again. I tried again. This time, the arrow went forward. It still didn't hit the target, but at least it was traveling in the correct direction. Better, Jai-woo said, which from her felt like high praise. Meanwhile, Kennedy was nailing it. Of course she was. Every arrow she released hit the target somewhere. Not the center, but on the target, which was more than most of us could say. I took archery lessons in prep school, I heard her telling her instructor. Summer camp in Switzerland, very exclusive. I rolled my eyes, so hard I nearly gave myself a migraine. Do not watch others, Jai-woo said. Watch yourself, your competition is you. She was right, of course, but that didn't make it less annoying that Kennedy was doing well. I tried again, and again. By the 10th try, I was starting to get the hang of it. Not good, but competent. My arrows were at least consistently going toward the target, even if they weren't hitting it. Good, Jai-woo said. You learn fast, now we add difficulty. She moved me back 10 feet. Are you kidding me? Champions are not made from easy things. Shoot. 2 hours later, sweaty, exhausted, and with arms that felt like overcooked noodles, we gathered for the competition. The format was simple, 3 shots each. Closest to the center wins. Kennedy went first. All 3 arrows hit the target, one of them relatively close to the center. She looked smug as she walked back to the group. Madison went next, 2 out of 3 on the target. Not bad for someone who'd probably never held a weapon before. Tatiana, surprisingly, was terrible. All 3 arrows missed the target entirely. She looked like she didn't care. Kimberly got 1 solid hit. then gave up and just tried to hit the target anywhere, which I respected. Then it was my turn. I walked up to the line, very aware that Di-young was watching, that everyone was watching, that I was about to either look competent or make a complete fool of myself on international television. No pressure. I picked up the bow, notched the first arrow, and tried to remember everything Jaiwoo had taught me. Stance, breath, focus. The target and I were connected. I released. The arrow flew straight and true, and hit the outer ring of the target. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Again," Jaiwoo called out. "Don't celebrate yet, finish." Second arrow, same process, breathe, focus, release. This one hit closer to the center. Not bullseye, but close enough that I heard several people gasp. One arrow left. I could feel Di-young's eyes on me, could feel the weight of everyone's attention. I took a breath, pulled back the bowstring, aimed, and released. The arrow flew. Time seemed to slow down. And then it hit dead center, bullseye. The courtyard erupted. "That's MY girl," Kimberly screamed. Jaiwoo actually smiled. "Good, very good, you listened." And Di-young was applauding, a genuine smile on his face, looking at me like I'd just done something incredible instead of just getting lucky with an arrow. "Looks like we have our winner," he said, walking over to where I stood. "Charlie, congratulations, dinner tonight, just us." Kennedy's expression could have curdled milk. "I thank you," I managed. "That was mostly luck." "Luck is just skill plus opportunity. You earned this." He was standing close now, close enough that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. "I'm looking forward to tonight." "Me too," I said and meant it. After the archery competition, we had the afternoon free before my dinner with Di-young. I should have spent it resting, maybe doing some meditation, definitely not thinking about what I was going to say during several hours alone with a literal prince. Instead, I was in my room having a full-scale panic attack. "What do I even talk about?" I asked Kimberly, who'd appointed herself my official date coach. "I can't just spend 3 hours making small talk. That's torture." "You made him laugh at dinner. Just be yourself." "Be myself" is terrible advice. Myself is awkward and says inappropriate things. "He likes that about you." "How do you know?" "Because everyone else is trying so hard to be perfect. You're trying to be real. That's refreshing." There was a knock at the door. Kimberly answered it. Kennedy stood there, flanked by 2 of her Mean Girl Alliance members, a brunette named Stephanie and a blonde named Courtney. They looked like they'd walked off the set of a CW show. "Can we help you?" Kimberly asked, her voice icy. "I just wanted to congratulate Charlie," Kennedy said sweetly, too sweetly. "That was quite a performance with the archery, very impressive." "Thanks," I said warily. "I mean, we all know archery isn't exactly a measure of compatibility or anything. It's just a fun game." She examined her nails. "But I'm sure your date will be lovely. Maybe he'll ask about your background, your family, getting to know the real you." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. "What are you implying?" Kimberly asked. "Nothing, just that it's important for the prince to know who he's spending time with. For instance," she pulled out her phone, "I was doing some research, social media research. It's so easy to find things online these days." She turned her phone toward me. On the screen was a photo of me from 7 years ago at a Black Lives Matter protest, getting arrested. My blood went cold. "That's you, right?" Kennedy asked, still in that sweet voice. "From a protest in Brooklyn, 2019, I just think it's interesting. Given that the prince is trying to maintain a certain image, political stability, no controversies." "I was 19, I said, my voice shaking. "I was at a peaceful protest. The police were arresting people indiscriminately. The charges were dropped." "Oh, I'm sure they were. I'm just saying optics matter. And having a contestant with an arrest record, even if the charges were dropped, might be problematic for the palace. For the kingdom," she smiled. "I'm sure the producers would want to know, for transparency." She left before I could respond. I stood there, frozen, staring at my phone where Kennedy had airdropped the photo. "That manipulative," Kimberly started. She's going to use this against me, I said quietly. She's going to make it seem like I'm some kind of troublemaker, like I'm not fit to be a princess. Screw her, you were protesting for justice. There's nothing wrong with that. Tell that to a palace that's worried about image. Tell that to a prince who needs political stability. I sat down on the bed. God, I'm so stupid. I should have known this would come up, should have been prepared. Charlie, look at me. Kimberly sat next to me, took my hands. You did nothing wrong. You stood up for what was right. If the prince or anyone has a problem with that, then they don't deserve you. But what ifs? No, what ifs? You go to that dinner tonight. You be honest. If he asks, you tell him the truth. And if he can't handle it, then he's not the man we thought he was. She was right. I knew she was right. But that didn't stop my hands from shaking. At 7 p.m., a staff member escorted me to a private garden on the palace grounds. The setup was beautiful. A table for two under a pergola covered in wisteria, string lights creating a warm glow, traditional Korean food laid out like art. And standing next to the table, wearing dark slacks and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, was Young. He smiled when he saw me. Charlie, you look beautiful. I was wearing a simple dress, deep purple, knee-length, nothing fancy. But the way he looked at me made me feel like I was wearing a ball gown. Thank you, you look. I gestured vaguely at him. Also beautiful, handsome, prince-like as we established. He laughed. Please sit. I hope you like Korean food. I love Korean food. Well, I love the Korean food I've had, which is mostly from this place in LA that may or may not be authentic, but it's delicious. We sat, and for a few minutes, we just ate in comfortable silence. The food was incredible. Bulgogi, kimchi, japchae, dishes I couldn't name but tasted amazing. This is nice, I said finally. Just normal, no cameras. There are cameras, he said apologetically, gesturing to the discreet cameras positioned around the garden. But fewer, and no one else listening. Right, reality TV. Can't escape it. Tell me something, he said, leaning forward. Are you enjoying this, the show, the competition, all of it? Honestly, it's terrifying and exhilarating and completely surreal. Like, yesterday I was managing Instagram accounts for a boutique candle company. Today I'm having dinner with a prince in an actual palace. My brain hasn't caught up. I understand that feeling. One day I was filming a romantic comedy in Seoul. The next day, my father died and I was crown prince. It's like someone changed the channel on your life without asking. Exactly that. We looked at each other, and I felt that connection again. That recognition of someone who understood what it was like to have your life change suddenly, without your consent. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything. Why are you doing this show? Really, not the official answer, the real answer. He was quiet for a moment, considering. My advisors suggested it, said it would be good for public relations, that the people needed to see their crown prince as relatable, romantic, that it would modernize the monarchy's image. So you didn't choose this? No, but I rarely get to choose anything anymore. He looked down at his plate. When you're in line for the throne, your life stops being your own. Every decision is calculated. Every relationship is scrutinized. Even this, he gestured around us. Even this is staged, produced, for an audience. That sounds lonely. It is, very lonely. I reached across the table, put my hand over his. For what it's worth, I don't see a prince right now. I just see you, Young, a guy who's trying to do the right thing even though he didn't ask for any of this. His hand turned under mine, fingers intertwining with mine. Thank you for that. We stayed like that for a moment, hands clasped, just looking at each other. Then his expression shifted, became more serious. Charlie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. My stomach dropped. Kennedy, she'd already talked to production, they'd already told him. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There's a photo, from several years ago, of you at a protest, getting arrested. There it was. Yes, I said, that's me. Tell me about it. I took a breath. I was 19. There was a Black Lives Matter protest in Brooklyn after I stopped. After another unarmed black man was shot by police, I went with some friends from college. We were peaceful. We were just marching, chanting, holding signs. But the police started making arrests, indiscriminate arrests. They arrested everyone. I spent 6 hours in custody and was released without charges. It's not on my record because there was never anything to charge me with. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. I'm not ashamed of it, I continued. I believe in standing up for what's right, for justice. If that makes me problematic for your palace, for your image, then... My voice cracked slightly. Then I understand if you need to eliminate me. There was silence. Then he said, Do you know what I did when I was 19? I shook my head. I was filming my first major movie, a romantic comedy that required me to do 17 takes of kissing the leading lady because I kept laughing. The most important decision I made that year was what kind of coffee to order. He leaned forward. You were out there fighting for justice, for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Do you have any idea how remarkable that is? I stuttered. Charlie, I don't care that you were arrested at a protest. I care that you have principles, that you're willing to stand up for them. The palace may have opinions. My advisors definitely will, but I make my own decisions about who I spend time with. He squeezed my hand. And I choose to spend time with you. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Kennedy tried to make it seem. Kennedy St. James is threatened by you, because you're genuine in a way she's not, because you make me laugh in a way others don't, because... He stopped himself. Because what? Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that first night, since you called this whole thing weird and made me feel like I could be honest, like I could be myself instead of just playing the role of prince. My heart was hammering. Young. I know this is fast. I know this is televised. I know there are cameras and producers and all of that. But Charlie, what I'm feeling right now, that's real. Is it real for you? I thought about lying, about being practical, about remembering that this was reality TV and none of it could be trusted. Instead, I told the truth. Yes, I whispered. It's real for me too. He stood up, came around the table, and pulled me to my feet. We stood there in the garden, string lights glowing above us, cameras rolling somewhere in the background. I'm going to kiss you now, he said quietly. If that's okay. That's okay. He leaned down, and our lips met, and everything stopped. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, testing, then deeper. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer. My arms went around his neck, and for a moment there was no reality show, no cameras, no competition. Just us. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. I started. Yeah, he agreed. We stood there, foreheads touching, both smiling like idiots. I should probably tell you, I said, that I'm absolutely going to overthink everything about this later. Good, so will I. We sat back down, but something had shifted. The air felt different, charged with possibility. We talked for hours, about everything, about his childhood in Seoul before his father died, about my childhood in Brooklyn with a single mom who worked 3 jobs, about his dreams of acting, my dreams of starting my own consulting business, about favorite movies and terrible music taste, and whether pineapple belongs on pizza. We agreed it doesn't, which felt like a relationship milestone. By the time the staff came to tell us they needed to wrap filming, it was nearly midnight. I don't want this to end, Young said as we walked back toward the palace. Me neither. Can I tell you a secret? Always. I was dreading this show, dreading every moment of it, but now, he looked at me, now I'm grateful because it brought you here. That's very romantic. Have you been practicing that line? He laughed. No, that was completely genuine, which is new for me. At the entrance to my wing, we stopped. He took both my hands. Charlie Baptiste, he said formally, would you accept a rose at tomorrow's ceremony? Is that a spoiler? Consider it a promise. I smiled. Then yes, I accept. He kissed me again, softer this time, sweeter. And then I was walking back to my room, floating approximately 3 feet off the ground. Kimberly was waiting in my room, having apparently bribed a staff member to let her in. Tell me everything, she demanded. He kissed me. He what? Twice. He kissed me twice. And Kimberly. I sat on the bed, hands over my face. I think I'm falling for him, actually falling for him. This was supposed to be about the money and the experience, and instead I'm catching real feelings for a real prince, and this is a disaster. Or it's the best thing that ever happened to you. Or that. We stayed up talking until 3 a.m., analyzing every moment of the date, every word he'd said, every look he'd given me. And somewhere in that conversation, I realized something terrifying. I was in love with Crown Prince Min, and I had absolutely no idea what to do about it. Okay, quick check-in here. Drop a kiss emoji if your heart is racing right now. But don't get comfortable, because Kennedy is not done causing problems. And what happens next is going to test everything. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. Someone was pounding on my door at 6 a.m., and when I opened it, Kimberly was standing there with her phone, looking pale. We have a problem. What kind of problem? She showed me her phone. On the screen was a tabloid website, one of those terrible gossip sites that traffics in rumors and half-truths. The headline read, "Royal Scandal, Prince Young's favorite has criminal past." Below it was the photo. Me, at 19, at the protest, being arrested. And below that, an entire article that made it sound like I was some kind of dangerous radical with a violent criminal history. They'd twisted everything, made it seem like I'd been charged with serious crimes instead of being released without charges, implied I was hiding my past from the palace, suggested I was on the show under false pretenses. How did this get out? I whispered. 3 guesses, first 2 don't count. Kennedy, it had to be Kennedy. The producers are freaking out, Kimberly continued. Vivienne wants to see you immediately, like right now. She sent someone to get you, but I intercepted them because I wanted to warn you first. I felt sick. This is it. I'm getting eliminated, sent home. The palace can't have this kind of controversy. You don't know that. Yes, I do. This is exactly the kind of thing that gets people kicked off reality shows. The scandal, the bad press. They'll cut me to protect the prince's image. Then fight. Don't let them send you home without a fight. But what could I fight with? The truth, that I'd been at a peaceful protest 7 years ago, that would just keep the story alive, give it more attention. I was screwed. Vivienne's temporary office at the palace was in the administrative wing. When I arrived, she was on the phone, speaking in rapid, clipped tones that suggested someone was getting fired. She saw me, ended the call, and gestured for me to sit. Ms. Baptiste, we have a situation. I know, I saw the article. That article has been picked up by 3 major news outlets. It's trending on social media, and the palace is concerned. I was 19, at a peaceful protest. The charges were dropped, there's nothing on my record. I believe you, the producers believe you, but the optics are bad, I know, so you're eliminating me. She paused. That's not my decision to make. Whose decision is it? Prince Young's. This is his show, ultimately, his choice. But Charlie, I need to warn you, there's immense pressure from the palace to remove you from the competition. His advisors are livid. His mother. His mother? The Queen Mother has opinions about suitable matches for her son, and right now you're not fitting those opinions. Of course there was a Queen Mother, and of course she wouldn't want her son with someone who had a scandal. When will he decide? I asked quietly. He's requested to see you, privately, in 1 hour. This was it. He was going to eliminate me himself. Probably wanted to do it kindly, privately, before the cameras. I'd had one perfect night with him, one kiss, one moment where this felt real. And now it was over. An hour later, I was standing in a private study somewhere in the palace. Traditional decor mixed with modern furniture. Bookshelves lining the walls. A large desk covered in papers. And Young, standing by the window, looking out at the gardens. He turned when I entered. His expression was serious, tired. He looked like he hadn't slept. Charlie. Hi. We stood there for an awkward moment. I saw the article, I said finally. I'm sorry. I never meant to bring scandal to your palace, to your family. I understand if you need to. Stop. He crossed the room quickly, took my hands. Just stop. Let me talk first, please. I nodded. This morning, I woke up to 17 calls from advisors, 12 calls from palace officials, and a very pointed call from my mother suggesting that I remove the problematic contestant immediately for the good of the kingdom. His voice was bitter. And do you know what I told them? I shook my head. No. What? I said no, to all of them. I said that Charlie Baptiste did nothing wrong, that she stood up for justice, that if the kingdom can't handle a crown prince who values conviction over convenience, then maybe the kingdom needs to evolve. I stared at him. You said that to your mother. I said that to everyone. Charlie, I don't care about the optics. I don't care about the scandal. I care about you, about what we started last night, about the fact that for the first time in years, I feel like I can be myself with someone. But your advisors can advise all they want. I'm the crown prince. Ultimately, the decisions are mine. He cupped my face in his hands. I'm not eliminating you. I'm keeping you if you want to stay. Of course I want to stay. But Di-young, I don't want to cause problems for you. If having me here makes things difficult, you make things better. Everything else is noise. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we pulled apart, I was crying. I don't deserve you, I whispered. Yes, you do. You deserve everything good, and I'm going to make sure you get it. That afternoon, Di-young called an impromptu press conference, something that was apparently highly unusual and definitely not in the show's schedule. All 20 remaining contestants were gathered in a formal receiving room, along with cameras, producers, and several very nervous-looking palace officials. Di-young stood at the front, wearing full formal attire, traditional Korean royal dress that made him look every inch the crown prince. Thank you all for gathering on short notice, he said. I want to address something that's been circulating in the media. Every eye in the room turned to me. Kennedy was smiling slightly. That bitch. It has come to my attention that one of our contestants participated in a peaceful protest several years ago and was briefly arrested before being released without charges. Some media outlets are trying to frame this as a scandal, as something shameful. He paused. I disagree. Murmurs around the room. I believe that standing up for justice, for what's right, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult, is not shameful. It's courageous. It's exactly the kind of character I want in a partner, in a future princess. More murmurs. Kennedy's smile had vanished. Charlie Baptiste, he said, looking directly at me, has shown more integrity in that one action than many people show in a lifetime, and I'm honored to have her here, to get to know her better, to see where this goes. He turned to the cameras. To the people of Hanseong, to the viewers watching this show, I ask you to judge the contestants by their character, not by tabloid headlines, by their actions, not by distorted narratives. And I promise you I will choose my partner based on who they are, not on who the media says they should be. He looked at me again, smiled. That's all, thank you. The room erupted in whispered conversations. Producers were frantically talking into headsets. Palace officials looked like they might have collective aneurysms. And I was trying not to cry on national television. Kimberly grabbed my hand, squeezed it. Girl, she whispered, he just claimed you in front of everyone. That was a declaration. That was insane. That was romantic. There's a difference. After the press conference ended, Kennedy cornered me in the hallway. Congratulations, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You manipulated a prince into defending you. That takes skill. I didn't manipulate anyone. I was honest. You should try it sometime. Honest, she laughed. You're here for the money. You said so yourself on day one. What if some of us are just here for the money? Remember. I remember being honest about my initial motivations. But things change. Feelings change. You really think he's going to choose you? A social media manager from Brooklyn with an arrest record. Maybe, maybe not. But at least I'll know I was genuine. Can you say the same? I walked away before she could respond. But her words stayed with me. Because she was right about one thing, I had come here for the money. That's why I'd said yes. When had it become about him? The elimination ceremony was scheduled for that evening, and the tension in the palace was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Normally, 10 women would be eliminated, bringing us from 20 down to 10. But after De-Young's very public declaration about me, nobody knew what to expect. Production was scrambling. Palace officials were having emergency meetings, and the remaining contestants were divided into two very clear camps, Team Charlie and Team everyone else. "This is wild," Kimberly said as we got ready in my room. "I've watched every dating show that's ever aired, and I have never seen a lead do what De-Young just did. He basically told the entire country, the entire world, that he's into you." "He didn't say that." "Girl, he said everything except that. All those I want someone with integrity. I'm honored to have her here. I want to see where this goes. That's code for I'm falling for this woman and everyone else can deal with it." Or he was just being nice, defending someone who was being attacked unfairly. Kimberly threw a pillow at me. "You are the most brilliant and simultaneously most clueless person I've ever met. That man is into you. Capital letters, neon signs, skywriting. Even if he is, and I'm not saying he is, there are still 9 other women in this competition. Women who are richer, more polished, more suitable for being a princess." "Name one." "Kennedy." "Kennedy is a manipulative snake who leaked your photo to the press. Try again." "Madison. She's sweet, kind, wholesome." "Boring, she's boring. De-Young would be asleep within a week. Next." "Tatiana. She's a literal model who has the personality of a beautiful lamp." "Charlie, you're missing the point. It doesn't matter how perfect someone looks on paper. It matters how they make you feel. And you make him feel like he can be real. That's worth more than all the polish in the world." Before I could argue further, there was a knock at the door. A production assistant poked her head in. "Ladies, we need everyone in the throne room in 15 minutes. This elimination is going to be different." "Different how?" I asked. She just smiled mysteriously and left. "I hate when they say different," Kimberly muttered. "Different always means dramatic, and dramatic always means someone cries." The throne room was even more intimidating at night. Candlelight flickered off the gold walls. The actual throne sat on a raised platform, looking like something out of a historical drama. And standing in front of it, wearing traditional royal attire that made him look like he'd stepped out of a fantasy novel, was De-Young. But he wasn't alone. Next to him stood an elegant woman in her 60s, wearing a hanbok in deep crimson with gold embroidery. Her hair was perfectly styled, her posture regal, her expression, well, terrifying. "That's the Queen Mother," Kimberly whispered. "Oh shit, this is not good." We lined up in a semicircle around the platform, 20 women, all of us looking nervous. Cameras were positioned at every angle. Vivienne stood off to the side, looking more stressed than I'd ever seen her. "Good evening," De-Young said, his voice formal, different from how he'd spoken to me in private. "Tonight's elimination will proceed differently than planned. My mother, Queen Mother Mincio, has requested to be present. She has concerns about the selection process." The Queen Mother stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice was cold, precise, and her English was perfect. "I have watched this program with growing concern," she said. "My son is the Crown Prince of Hanseong. The woman he chooses will be the future queen. This is not a game. This is not entertainment. This is the future of our kingdom." Oh God, this was about me. This was definitely about me. "I have concerns about several contestants," she continued. "Concerns about their suitability, their background, their ability to represent Hanseong with dignity and grace." She was looking directly at me. "Therefore, I am requesting, as is my right as Queen Mother, to participate in tonight's elimination, to offer my guidance on who should remain and who should leave." Murmurs rippled through the room. De-Young's jaw was tight. "Mother," he started. "This is not negotiable, De-Young. The monarchy is bigger than any one person, bigger than feelings or attractions. You may choose who you spend time with, but I will ensure that those choices serve the kingdom." This was a power play, a very public power play. Vivienne stepped forward. Your Majesty, with respect, the format of the show can be adjusted. My son will still make the final decisions, but I will offer counsel. Is that understood? It wasn't a question. Di-young looked like he wanted to argue, but this was his mother, the queen, in front of cameras and palace officials and 20 nervous women. He couldn't exactly tell her to leave. Very well, he said finally. Let's begin. The ceremony was torture. Di-young would call a name. The woman would step forward, and before she could accept the rose, the queen mother would either nod, meaning approved, or remain silent, meaning she had concerns. The first 5 names were called without incident. All received the queen mother's approval. Madison, a woman named Sophie who I barely knew, 3 others whose names I struggled to remember because my anxiety was making everything fuzzy. Then, Tatyana Volkov. Tatyana stepped forward in a stunning white gown. The queen mother nodded immediately. Approved. She has grace, beauty, and comes from a respected family. Of course. Stephanie Chang. Another nod. Approved, educated, accomplished, suitable. This was a nightmare. Kimberly Washington. Kimberly shot me a nervous look as she stepped forward. The queen mother was silent for a long moment, too long. Concerns, she finally said. She is here for exposure, for her social media following, not for genuine connection. That's not true, Kimberly said, her voice shaking but firm. I came here with mixed motivations, yes, but I've grown to genuinely respect the prince, to appreciate this experience. Respect is not love. You do not love my son. No, Kimberly admitted. I don't, but I do respect him, and I think that matters. The queen mother considered this. Honesty is valuable, approved, but barely. Kimberly took her rose and returned to the line, looking shaken. More names were called, more silent judgments. Some approved, some barely, some with obvious reluctance. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. Charlie Baptiste. I stepped forward on legs that felt like water. The entire room was silent. Cameras zoomed in. Everyone was watching to see what would happen. Di-young held out the rose, his eyes on mine, silently apologetic. I reached for it. Stop. The queen mother's voice cut through the room like a blade. Your Majesty, Di-young started. She has an arrest record. She comes from nothing. She has no understanding of royal protocol, of tradition, of duty. She is wholly unsuitable to be a princess of Hanseong. The words hit like physical blows. Mother, that's not. It is fair, it is honest, and it is my duty to protect this kingdom from unsuitable matches. She looked at me, her expression not cruel, just distant, like I was a problem to be solved. You seem like a nice young woman, but nice is not enough. You are not enough for my son, for this kingdom. Silence. I stood there, rose in hand, feeling like I'd been slapped. Then Di-young did something I'll never forget. He stepped off the platform, walked over to where I stood, and took my hand. With respect, Mother, you're wrong. Di-young. Charlie has more integrity, more courage, more genuine goodness than anyone I've met in years. She stood up for justice when it wasn't easy. She's been honest with me from day one. She makes me laugh. She makes me feel like I can be myself instead of just playing a role. He looked at me. She is exactly what I need, what this kingdom needs. You are thinking with emotion, not logic. I'm thinking with both, and my decision is made. He turned back to me. Charlie Baptiste, will you accept this rose? Every eye in the room was on us. The queen mother's expression was carved from ice. Vivienne looked like she might pass out. The other contestants looked shocked, awed, terrified. I should have said no, should have bowed out gracefully, saved Di-young from having to choose between me and his mother. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw something that made my decision for me. Hope, real, genuine hope. Yes, I whispered, I accept. The room erupted. After the ceremony ended, after 5 more women were eliminated, after the queen mother swept out of the room in icy silence, after Vivienne told us we had the rest of the night off because production needed to regroup, I found myself in the palace gardens, trying to process what had just happened. Di-young found me there. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, sitting beside me on a stone bench. "My mother was out of line." "She's worried about you, about the kingdom, I get it." "That doesn't make it okay. What she said to you was honest. I'm not suitable. Not really. I'm not from nobility. I don't know protocol. I barely speak Korean. I'm just a regular person who accidentally ended up on a reality show." "You're not regular. You're extraordinary." "Di-young, do you know what I see when I look at you?" He turned to face me fully. "I see someone who's genuine in a world full of performance. Someone who makes me laugh when I want to take everything too seriously. Someone who stood up for what was right even when it was hard. Someone who's honest even when lying would be easier." He took my hand. "I see the woman I'm falling in love with." My breath caught. "What?" "I'm falling in love with you, Charlie. I have been since that first night when you called all of this weird and made me feel like I could breathe. And I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know my mother thinks you're unsuitable. But I don't care. I want you here. I want to see where this goes." "I'm falling in love with you too," I whispered. Which is terrifying because this is reality TV, and none of this is supposed to be real, and I came here for $75,000. But now I can't remember why that mattered because all I care about is you. He smiled, that real transformative smile that made my heart stop, and kissed me. This kiss was different from the others, deeper, more certain, like a promise. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling like idiots. "So what now?" I asked. "Now we keep going. You keep being yourself, I keep fighting for you, and we figure this out together." "Your mother hates me." "She'll come around, eventually, probably, maybe," he grimaced. "Okay, she might never come around, but Charlie, I'm going to be king someday. And when I am, I get to make the rules, not her." "That's years away." "Then I'll wait. If you're worth waiting for, and you are, I'll wait." We sat there in the garden, holding hands, watching the moon rise over the palace. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. The next morning, I woke up to discover that the footage from last night's elimination ceremony had already been released to the press. Not the full episode, that wouldn't air for another week, just carefully edited clips that made the situation look even more dramatic than it had been, which was saying something because it had been pretty dramatic. The headlines were insane. Queen Mother calls out Crown Prince's choice. Royal romance or royal scandal. Palace divided over controversial contestant. Prince Di-young defies mother for American love interest. And my personal favorite from a particularly terrible tabloid. Brooklyn Girl CAUSES Royal Crisis. Is Charlie Baptiste destroying the monarchy? "I'm not destroying anything," I muttered, scrolling through my phone during our allotted morning internet time. "I'm just existing, aggressively existing." "Girl, you're not destroying anything," Kimberly agreed. She was sprawled on my bed, also scrolling. "But you are breaking the internet. Look at these Twitter threads. People are invested. There's literally a hashtag, Team Charlie. There's also Send Charlie Home." "Yeah, but Team Charlie is trending higher. That's what matters." She kept scrolling. "Oh my God, someone made a TikTok compilation of every time Di-young has looked at you. It's set to romantic music. It has 3 million views." "Please tell me you're joking." "I am not joking. Wait, there's more. Someone else made a compilation of Kennedy looking mad every time you get attention from the prince. It's titled Kennedy St. James Villain Arc, and it's hilarious." Despite everything, I laughed. There was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I found Vivienne standing there with her ever-present digital tablet and her ever-present expression of controlled chaos. "Charlie, we need to talk." Those 4 words have never meant anything good in the history of humanity. "Okay," I said warily. Kimberly excused herself and quietly left the room. Vivienne came in, closed the door, and sat in the chair by the window. "I'm going to be honest with you because I think you deserve honesty. The palace is in crisis mode, not because of you specifically, but because of the situation. The Queen Mother is furious that Di-young publicly contradicted her. The advisors are split on whether you should be removed from the competition. And the public," she showed me her tablet, The public is obsessed. The screen showed social media analytics, view counts, engagement metrics. The numbers were staggering. This is the most watched episode in the show's history, Vivienne continued. Last night's ceremony has been viewed 40 million times across various platforms. You're trending in 17 countries. People are writing think pieces about class, race, monarchy, and whether love is more important than tradition. I didn't ask for any of this, I said quietly. I know, but it's happening anyway. And Charlie, she leaned forward. I need to know, are you in this for real? Because if you're not, if this is just for the money or the exposure, you need to tell me now, before this goes any further. It was for the money, I admitted. At first, that's why I agreed to come. But now, I thought about Young's smile, his laugh, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Now it's real, scary real. I'm falling in love with him and I have no idea what to do about it. Vivienne studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled, not her producer's smile, but something genuine. Good, because he's falling for you too. Everyone can see it. And between you and me, I think you're exactly what he needs, what this kingdom needs, even if they don't know it yet. His mother disagrees. His mother is protective, traditional. She'll come around, or she won't. But that's not your problem to solve right now. Your problem is to figure out if you can handle this. The scrutiny, the pressure, the fact that every moment of your life will be analyzed by millions of people. Can I be honest? Always. I have no idea if I can handle this. A month ago, my biggest concern was whether my client's Instagram post would get enough engagement. Now I'm dating a prince, fighting with a queen, and being called both a gold digger and a revolutionary by strangers on the internet. I'm not qualified for this. Nobody's qualified for this. You just have to decide if it's worth it. Is he worth it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Only you can answer that. After she left, I sat on my bed, staring at my phone, reading comments from people I'd never meet about a situation they didn't fully understand. Some people loved me, said I was genuine and refreshing, and exactly what the monarchy needs. Others hated me, said I was unsuitable and trashy, and an embarrassment to the kingdom. Most were just fascinated, watching to see what would happen next. And I realized something. I'd become a character in a story I didn't write, a protagonist in a narrative I didn't control. The question was whether I was brave enough to keep playing the part. That afternoon, there was a group date, because even in the middle of a constitutional crisis, reality TV must go on. The remaining 15 contestants, we'd lost 5 last night, were taken to a traditional Korean tea house in the palace gardens. The setup was beautiful. Low tables, silk cushions, delicate tea sets, an instructor who was going to teach us the proper tea ceremony. Young was already there, wearing casual clothes that somehow still looked princely. When I walked in, his entire face lit up. Charlie, he said, gesturing to the cushion next to him. Sit here. Kennedy, who'd been heading for that exact spot, stopped mid-stride. Her expression could have curdled milk. Of course, Your Highness, I said, sitting down. Under my breath, just loud enough for him to hear. You're making enemies. Let them be enemies. I'm making choices. The tea ceremony instructor, an elderly woman named Han who spoke minimal English, began demonstrating the proper technique. Every movement was precise, ritualized, full of meaning. In Korea, she said through a translator, tea ceremony is meditation, is respect, is connection. You must be present, mindful, no thinking of past, no worrying of future, only now. I tried to focus, tried to be present, but it was hard when I was hyper-aware of Young sitting next to me, our knees occasionally touching, his hand sometimes brushing mine as we reached for the same teapot. You're distracted, he murmured. How can you tell? You just poured tea into your lap. I looked down. He was right. There was a growing wet spot on my dress. Oh God, I muttered, grabbing a napkin. Here. He handed me his napkin too, and our fingers touched, and suddenly we were both just looking at each other, smiling like idiots, while 15 other women watched and cameras captured every moment. The instructor cleared her throat. Focus is necessary. Sorry, I said, not feeling sorry at all. After the tea ceremony ended, which I absolutely failed. By the way, I'm apparently terrible at meditation and ritualized precision. Young asked if he could speak with me privately. We walked through the palace gardens, cameras following at a respectful distance. I wanted to apologize, he said, for last night, for putting you in that position with my mother. You didn't put me anywhere. She did. And you defended me. That's not something to apologize for. Still, I know this is hard, being scrutinized, judged, having your past picked apart by strangers. It is hard, but Young, I stopped walking, turned to face him. It's worth it, you're worth it. Something shifted in his expression. Charlie, I need to tell you something. Okay. Next week, we're doing hometown visits. Well, not actual hometowns. That would be logistically impossible. But we're doing family interviews. Your family will be flown here. My mother will meet them. My stomach dropped. My family. Your mother, your brother if he wants to come, anyone you want here. He took my hands. I know my mother was harsh, but she needs to see who you really are, where you come from, the people who made you into the person you are. My family is. I searched for words. We're not fancy. My mom's a nurse. My brother's in grad school. We're regular people, very regular. Good. I want to meet regular people. I'm surrounded by palace officials and nobles and people who have been trained since birth to say the right thing. I want to meet people who are real. My mom is going to lose her mind. She's going to embarrass me. She's going to tell you stories about my childhood that I definitely don't want you to know. He grinned. Now I'm really looking forward to it. Young, I'm serious. My family is we're loud. We're blunt. We don't do proper very well. Charlie, he cupped my face in his hands. I don't want proper, I want you, all of you, including your loud, blunt, wonderful family. I kissed him then, right there in the garden, cameras be damned. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. You know this is going to be a disaster, right? I said. I'm counting on it. That evening, I video called my mother. Charlotte Marie, Baptiste, she screamed the second her face appeared on screen. Why am I finding out from the news that you're in love with a prince? Hi, Mom. Good to see you, too. Don't hi mom me. Explain, now, everything. So I did. I told her about the show, about Young, about the Queen Mother's dramatic rejection, about everything. She listened without interrupting, which was unprecedented. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then, baby, are you happy? The question caught me off guard. What? Are you happy? Really happy? Not TV happy. Not this looks good for the cameras happy. I mean real happy. I thought about it, about Young's smile, his laugh, the way he looked at me like I was the most interesting person in the world. Yes, I said softly. I'm really happy, terrified but happy. Then that's all that matters, she paused. Though I gotta say, his mother sounds like a piece of work. Mom. What? I call it like I see it. She called my baby unsuitable. Nobody calls my baby unsuitable. I don't care if she's a queen. She's a queen mother, and yes, she's protective. Protective is one word for it. But baby, if this prince of yours really loves you, and from what I'm seeing on the news, he really does, then his mama is gonna have to deal. Because Baptiste women don't back down. You hear me? I hear you, Mom. Good. Now when am I meeting this boy? Next week. They're flying you and Daniel here for family interviews. She squealed, actually squealed. My mother, who once stared down a mugger in the Bronx without flinching, squealed. I'm meeting a prince. Charlotte, what do I wear? What do I say? Do I curtsy? I don't know how to curtsy. Mom, just be yourself. That's all he wants. Being myself got us evicted twice. Maybe I should be someone else for this. Mom. I'm kidding, mostly. But seriously, I'm going to need to go shopping and get my hair done and maybe take a crash course in royal etiquette. Or you could just be the amazing, strong, brilliant woman who raised me and my brother while working 3 jobs and somehow still made us feel loved and safe every single day. She went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. You're really in love with him, aren't you? Yes, Mom, I really am. Then I'm happy for you, baby. Scared out of my mind, but happy. After we hung up, I sat there feeling like I might cry. My mother was coming here to meet Dee Young, to be interviewed about whether I was suitable to be a princess. This was either going to be the best thing ever or a complete disaster. Knowing my family, probably both. Okay, drop a heart if you're excited to meet Charlie's family, because next chapter is hometown visits, and let me tell you, Charlie's mom is about to steal the show. But first, Kennedy makes one final play that almost destroys everything. The day before family visits, Kennedy made her move. I should have seen it coming, should have known she wouldn't go down without a fight, but I was so focused on preparing for my mother's arrival, mentally preparing, emotionally preparing to watch my worlds collide, that I didn't see the trap until I was already in it. It started with a note slipped under my door at 6 a.m. Meet me in the garden library, 7 a.m., we need to talk. K. I should have ignored it, should have told Kimberly or Vivienne or literally anyone, but something in the note's tone made me curious. Maybe Kennedy wanted to call a truce. Maybe she was dropping out. Maybe she'd finally realized that Dee Young wasn't interested and wanted to apologize. Yes, I know, I was an idiot. The garden library was a small building on the palace grounds, rarely used, filled with old books and comfortable chairs. When I arrived, Kennedy was already there, wearing a designer tracksuit and looking like she'd just stepped out of a Vogue shoot. Charlie, she said, smiling too sweetly, thank you for coming. What do you want, Kennedy? Direct, I appreciate that. She sat in one of the chairs, crossed her legs. I wanted to talk to you woman to woman, no cameras, no competition, just honesty. Okay. You're going to win, she said simply. Anyone with eyes can see it. Dee Young is in love with you. He's made his choice. If you brought me here to tell me that, you could have saved yourself the early morning. I brought you here to offer you something. She leaned forward. $200,000, cash, tax-free to drop out. I stared at her. What? You heard me. $200,000, more than double what you'll make from the appearance fee. You take the money, you leave the show, you go back to your normal life. Everyone wins. Except Dee Young. Dee Young will get over it. He's a prince. He'll find someone suitable, someone from his world, someone who actually belongs in a palace. And that someone is you. Maybe, maybe not, but it won't be you. Charlie, be realistic. Do you really think this ends well? The Queen Mother hates you. The palace officials hate you. Half the country thinks you're a gold digger. Even if Dee Young chooses you, even if you somehow end up together, you'll spend the rest of your life fighting. Fighting for acceptance. Fighting to prove you belong. Fighting everyone who says you're not good enough. Her words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Because she wasn't entirely wrong. Why do you care? I asked. Why does it matter to you whether I stay or go? Because I'm doing you a favor. I'm offering you a way out. A way to leave with dignity and money instead of getting your heart broken on national television. Or you're scared, I said slowly, pieces clicking together. You're scared that I'm actually going to win, that Dee Young is actually going to choose me. And that terrifies you because you've spent your whole life being told you're the best, and now you're losing to a social media manager from Brooklyn. Her expression hardened. Think carefully about this, Charlie. $200,000, that's life-changing money. You could pay off your loans, help your family, start your business. All you have to do is walk away. No. What? I said no. I'm not taking your bribe. I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here and I'm going to see this through, whether I win or lose. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. I turned to leave. Charlie, her voice stopped me. You're going to regret this. I looked back. Probably, but at least I'll regret something real. Can you say the same? I left before she could respond. But as I walked back to my room, her words echoed in my head. $200,000. More than I'd make from this whole experience. Enough to change my life. And I'd turned it down. For what? For a prince I'd known for 3 weeks. For a relationship that might not survive outside the reality TV bubble. Was I being brave or just stupid? You were being brave, Kimberly said when I told her what happened. Kennedy's just bitter. Ignore her. What if she's right, though? What if I'm setting myself up for heartbreak? Then you get your heart broken, but at least you'll know you tried, that you didn't give up. Very inspiring. Did you get that from a fortune cookie? Actually, yes, but it still applies. Despite Kimberly's reassurance, I couldn't shake Kennedy's words. They followed me through breakfast, through morning interviews, through an afternoon group activity where we learned traditional Korean dance, which I was terrible at, naturally. And they were still echoing in my head that evening when Vivienne pulled me aside. Charlie, we need to talk about tomorrow. Family visits, I know, I'm prepared. Well, as prepared as I can be. There's been a development. She looked uncomfortable. Someone leaked information to the press about your mother. My stomach dropped. What information? About her work history, about the evictions, about the times your family struggled financially. The tabloids are running stories about how you come from poverty and instability. We weren't in poverty, we just didn't have much money. There's a difference. I know, but the media is spinning it as evidence that you're a gold digger, that you're only here for money and status. Let me guess, Kennedy. We don't have proof, but yes, probably Kennedy. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. So tomorrow, when my mother gets here, she's going to be walking into a situation where people already think we're trashy and unsuitable. I'm sorry, if there was a way to stop this. There isn't. I know how media works. Once a story is out there, you can't unring that bell. I opened my eyes. Does De-Young know? He knows. He's furious. He wanted to release a statement defending you, but his advisors talked him out of it, said it would just draw more attention to the story. They're probably right. Charlie, if you want to drop out. I'm not dropping out. Kennedy already tried to bribe me to leave. I said no. I'm not going anywhere. Vivienne smiled. Good, because between you and me, I think your mother is going to surprise everyone. You clearly haven't met my mother. No, but I've met you, and you had to learn that strength and authenticity from somewhere. The next morning, my mother arrived. I met her in one of the palace's receiving rooms, a formal space with uncomfortable furniture and way too many mirrors. She was wearing her best dress, her hair freshly done, and an expression I recognized from every parent-teacher conference, every landlord negotiation, every moment in my childhood when she'd had to fight for us. Mom, I said, pulling her into a hug. Baby girl, she whispered, squeezing me tight. I saw the news. I saw what they're saying about us. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Stop, she pulled back, held my face in her hands. You have nothing to apologize for. We survived. We made it. And anyone who wants to judge us for that can deal with me. The Queen Mother is going to be in the interview. Good. I got some words for her, too. Mom, please. Relax. I know how to behave. But I'm also not going to sit there and let anyone disrespect you or our family. Baptiste women don't bow to nobody, not even queens. My brother Daniel arrived 20 minutes later, looking uncomfortable in a suit and tie. This place is insane, he muttered, hugging me. Charlie, what have you gotten yourself into? A reality show, a competition, possibly a constitutional crisis, the usual. And you're in love with the prince. Apparently. He better be good enough for you, or I'm going to have problems. You sound like Mom. Learn from the best. The interview was set up in one of the palace's formal rooms. De-Young sat in the center, with my mother on one side and Daniel on the other. I sat off to the side, watching, not allowed to participate. And in the corner, observing with an expression that could freeze fire, was the Queen Mother. This was going to be a disaster. Mrs. Baptiste, De-Young started, his voice warm. Thank you for coming all this way. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your Highness, my mother said, and I noticed she sat up straighter, shoulders back, chin up. Thank you for having us, and thank you for treating my daughter with respect. Charlie is remarkable. Before we continue, my mother interrupted, I need to address something. Oh God, here we go. I've seen the news. I know what people are saying about us, about how we struggled financially, about the evictions, about how we're unsuitable. She looked directly at the Queen Mother. And I want to say something about that. The Queen Mother's expression didn't change. I raised my children alone after their father left, my mother continued. I worked 3 jobs: nurse, weekend cashier, evening cleaning service. There were times we didn't know how we'd make rent, times we had to choose between food and electricity, times it was hard. Mrs. Baptiste, Young tried to interrupt. Let me finish. Her voice was firm but not harsh. It was hard, but we survived, and more than that, we thrived. My daughter graduated summa cum laude from NYU. My son is in graduate school studying medicine. We didn't have money, but we had love. We had values. We had integrity. She stood up, walked over to where the Queen Mother sat. Your Majesty, I understand you have concerns about my daughter. You think she's not suitable, that she doesn't have the right background, the right pedigree. She paused. But let me tell you what my daughter does have. She has strength. She has kindness. She has the courage to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. She has the ability to make people laugh, to make them think, to make them better than they were before they met her. The Queen Mother's expression was unreadable. I don't know much about being royal, my mother continued, but I know about raising good people. And Charlie, she's the best person I know. Whether that makes her suitable to be a princess, I don't know, but it makes her suitable to be loved, respected, valued. And if your son sees that, if he's smart enough to recognize that character matters more than circumstances, then maybe he's the right man for her after all. There was total silence. The entire room was silent. Then the Queen Mother stood up. She walked over to my mother, and for a terrifying moment, I thought there was going to be some kind of confrontation. Instead, she bowed, just slightly, just enough. You are a fierce woman, she said. I respect that, and you are right, Charlie is strong, perhaps strong enough. She paused. I still have concerns, but I am willing to reconsider. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. It was possibility. After the interview ended, after Daniel told Young approximately 17 embarrassing stories about my childhood, after my mother got a tour of the palace and declared it too clean, after we all had lunch together, and I watched my worlds collide in the weirdest, most wonderful way, I walked my family back to their car. I like him, my mother said. He's good to you, I can see it. Really? Really, and baby, his mother is going to come around, I saw it in her eyes. She's scared of change, but she's not heartless. Give her time. What if there isn't time? Then you make time. Fight for what you want, Charlie. Don't let anyone, not queens, not tabloids, not even your own fear, take it away from you. She hugged me tight and I felt like a little girl again. Safe, protected, loved. You got this, baby. Baptiste women always do. That night, after my family left, after the other family interviews were done, Kennedy's parents were exactly as terrible as expected. Young found me in the gardens. Your mother is incredible, he said. She's something. She's fierce, protective, exactly what you needed her to be. He pulled me close. Charlie, I know today was hard. I know the media has been cruel. I know my mother was difficult. She bowed to my mom. That's progress. It is, and it's because your mother showed her something true, something real, the kind of strength that can't be bought or bred, the kind that has to be earned. Very poetic. I've been practicing. He kissed my forehead. 3 more weeks, and I have to make my final choice. And I've already made it. I made it weeks ago. I'm just waiting for the show to catch up. My heart stopped. Young. I love you, Charlie Baptiste. Not reality TV love. What I feel for you is real love. The kind that makes me think about our future for the first time in years. The kind that makes me believe that maybe I can be both a good prince and a happy person. I love you too, I whispered. So much it scares me. Good, love should be a little scary. It means it matters. We kissed under the stars, in the palace gardens, while cameras somewhere captured what would become one of the most watched moments in reality TV history. And I didn't care. Because this was real. Whatever happened next, whatever drama, whatever scandal, whatever obstacles, this was real. And that was enough. Week 5 arrived faster than I wanted it to. We were down to the final 6 contestants. Me, Kennedy, of course. Madison, the kindergarten teacher. A woman named Yuki who barely spoke but was apparently a famous cellist. Kimberly, who'd shocked everyone by making it this far, and Stephanie from Kennedy's Mean Girl Alliance. The format for the final weeks was brutal. One-on-one overnight dates. Not overnight in the sexy sense. There were strict rules about that, much to the disappointment of several contestants. But overnight in the you spend 24 hours together away from the palace and cameras mostly off sense. The goal was to see how we functioned in real-world settings, to test compatibility when the production magic wasn't there to smooth over awkward moments. Di-young had already done dates with Yuki. They went to a symphony, she cried. He looked bored, and Madison. They visited a children's hospital. She cried. He looked uncomfortable because a 6-year-old asked if he was a real prince or a pretend one. Today was my date. And I was absolutely terrified. "You're going to be fine," Kimberly said, helping me pack an overnight bag. "You and Di-young have actual chemistry, real connection. That doesn't just disappear because you're off camera." What if it does, though? What if we've just been playing characters this whole time, and when we're alone, we realize we have nothing to talk about? "Charlie, you made him laugh by comparing royal protocol to a corporate team-building exercise. You told his mother that Baptiste women don't bow to anyone. You shot a bull's in archery despite having never touched a bow before that day. You're not playing a character. You're just being you, and he loves you." He said he loves me. Exactly. On camera, while being filmed for a TV show. "Girl," Kimberly grabbed my shoulders. "That man defended you to his mother, to the palace, to the entire country. That's not TV love. That's real love. Now stop spiraling and go have an amazing date." She was right. I knew she was right. But that didn't stop my hands from shaking as I zipped up my bag. The date location was a surprise. Di-young picked me up in a car, driving himself, which apparently caused a minor security panic, and refused to tell me where we were going. "Trust me," he said, grinning as we drove through Seoul traffic. "That's what people say right before they murder you." "I'm not going to murder you. That would be terrible for the ratings." Very reassuring. We drove for about an hour, leaving the city behind, heading into the countryside. The landscape changed, less concrete, more green, rolling hills and traditional villages. Finally, we pulled up to a small hanok, a traditional Korean house, nestled in a valley surrounded by mountains. "What is this place?" I asked. "My grandmother's house. Well, it was. She passed away 5 years ago, but the family kept it. I used to come here as a child before everything got complicated, before I was crown prince, when I was just Di-young." He looked at me. "I wanted to share it with you." My heart melted. "You brought me to your childhood home." "I brought you to the only place where I ever felt like I could just be myself. I hoped you might like it." We got out of the car. The house was beautiful, traditional architecture, curved roof, wooden beams, surrounded by a garden that looked like it belonged in a painting. "No cameras?" I asked. "No cameras, just us. Well, security is somewhere nearby, but they're under strict orders to stay hidden unless there's an emergency." "Define emergency." "Invasion, natural disaster, me dying." He took my hand. "Anything short of that, we're alone." Alone. With Di-young. For 24 hours. This was either going to be perfect or a complete disaster. The house was smaller than I expected, but somehow warmer. Lived in. Real. "My grandmother wasn't nobility," Di-young explained as we walked through the rooms. "She was an artist, painter. She married into the royal family and everyone thought she was unsuitable. Too common, too different." Sounds familiar. "I thought you might relate." He showed me a room filled with paintings, landscapes, portraits, abstract pieces, all stunning. "She taught me that being royal doesn't mean being perfect. It means being true to who you are while serving others." Wise woman. "She would have loved you." He paused in front of a portrait, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "She always said I should marry someone who makes me laugh, someone who sees the person, not the crown." And you make me laugh. "You see me, so I think she'd approve." We spent the afternoon cooking together, or rather, Di-young cooked while I tried not to burn down his grandmother's kitchen. "How are you this bad at cooking?" he asked, laughing as I managed to somehow burn water. "Don't ask me how, I don't understand it either. I have many talents. Cooking is not one of them. I once set off the fire alarm making toast." "How do you burn toast?" "Determination and a complete lack of attention span." He was still laughing as he took over, making a traditional Korean meal while I sat on the counter and told him stories about my disastrous attempts at domesticity. "I once tried to make my mom a birthday cake," I said. "From scratch, I confused salt and sugar. She tried one bite and then very gently suggested we order pizza instead." "Please tell me you learned from that experience." "I learned that bakeries exist for a reason." We ate dinner at a low table in the main room, sitting on cushions, sharing food family style. It was simple, intimate, real. "Tell me something," Di-young said. "Something you haven't told anyone else, something real." "Like what?" "Anything, a fear, a dream, a secret." I thought about it. "I'm terrified I'm not enough." "What?" "For this, for you, for being a princess. I'm terrified that I'm going to wake up one day and realize I was delusional to think I could do this. That I'm just a social media manager from Brooklyn who got lucky on a reality show, and that eventually everyone, including you, is going to realize I don't belong here." He set down his chopsticks. "Charlie, I know it's stupid. I know you've said you love me. But there's this voice in my head that sounds like every person who's ever told me I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy enough. And sometimes that voice is really loud." "Can I tell you something?" he asked quietly. "Always." "I'm terrified too. Terrified that I'm going to let down my country, that I'm not ready to be king, that I'm going to make decisions that hurt people, that loving you, choosing you, is selfish when I should be choosing someone suitable who makes the advisors happy." He reached across the table, took my hand. "But then I think about what kind of king I want to be, and I realize I want to be the kind who values authenticity over appearance, who values love over politics, who values courage, the courage to be yourself over perfection." "That's very poetic." "I've been practicing," he smiled. "Charlie, you are enough, more than enough, you're extraordinary, and anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve you, including me." "You deserve me." "I'm going to try to, every day, for the rest of my life if you'll let me." I kissed him then, reaching across the table, knocking over a bowl in the process. Very romantic, I know. And for a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the show, not the crown, not the scrutiny. Just us. Later that night, we sat on the porch overlooking the mountains, wrapped in blankets, drinking tea and watching stars. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Anything." "What happens after the show? Like really, not the TV version, the real version." He was quiet for a moment. "If I choose you, when I choose you, there will be an official engagement period. 6 months, traditionally. During that time, you'd live in the palace, learn protocol, take language lessons, meet with advisors, prepare for the role of crown princess." "That sounds terrifying." "It is, but you wouldn't be alone. I'd be with you. And Charlie," he turned to face me, "I need you to know something. Choosing you isn't just about love. It's about choosing the kind of future I want, the kind of monarchy I want to build, one that values people over tradition, that evolves instead of stagnates. No pressure. I know it's a lot. I know I'm asking you to completely change your life, and I know that's not fair, but I'm asking anyway. What if I say yes and then realize I can't do it? What if I fail? Then we figure it out together. But Charlie, I don't think you're going to fail. I think you're going to be extraordinary. Different from what they expect, yes, but extraordinary." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Then my phone buzzed. We'd been given our phones back for the overnight dates, limited use, monitored, but still access. It was a text from Kimberly. "Turn on the news. Now." "What?" I muttered, pulling up a news app. The headline made my blood run cold. "Palace Insider claims Prince Daejung's relationship with Charlie Baptiste is staged for RATINGS." Below it was an article claiming that a source close to the palace had revealed that Young and I had been instructed by producers to play up our relationship for dramatic effect, that our connection was manufactured, that the whole thing was a publicity stunt. "No," I whispered. Young looked at his phone, saw the same article. His expression went from confused to furious in about 2 seconds. "This is a lie," he said. "I know. Someone leaked this to sabotage us, to make people question everything. Kennedy. Maybe, or someone in the palace who wants to force my hand, make me choose someone else to avoid the scandal." He stood up, started packing. "Charlie, you have to know, nothing about us is staged. Nothing about what I feel for you is fake." "I know that, but Young, this is going to be everywhere. People are going to believe it. They're going to think we've been lying this whole time. Then we tell the truth. We release a statement. That just confirms the story, gives it more attention. That's how media works. Deny it and people assume it's true. So what do? I thought about it, about the show, about the scrutiny, about the impossible situation we were in. "We don't do anything," I said finally. "We keep going. We finish the show. We let our actions speak louder than tabloid rumors. And if people don't believe us, then they don't believe us. But Young, I know what's real. You know what's real. That's what matters." He pulled me close, held me tight. "I'm not losing you. Not to this, not to anything." "You're not losing me. I'm right here." But even as I said it, I felt the walls closing in, the pressure mounting, the weight of everything threatening to crush what we'd built. And I wondered if love, real, genuine love, was enough to survive reality TV, royal politics, and a world determined to tear us apart. The next morning, we drove back to the palace in silence. The article had exploded overnight. Staged romance was trending. Think pieces were being written. Former contestants from other shows were weighing in. Everyone had an opinion. When we pulled up to the palace, there were actual protesters. Not many, maybe 20, but they were there, holding signs that said things like "Fake Prince, Fake Love" and "Stop playing with our HEARTS." "This is insane," I muttered. "This is the cost of being public," Young said grimly, "of living your life in the spotlight." Vivienne met us at the entrance, looking more stressed than I'd ever seen her. "We have a situation," she said. "Another one. The palace is demanding we address the rumors, release a statement, do something to control the narrative." "What do you want to do?" Young asked me. I stopped because I didn't know. Every option felt wrong. Stay silent and let people believe the lie. Speak up and give the story more oxygen. Drop out to avoid the scandal. Stay and fight through it. "I need time," I said finally. "To think, to process. This is too much." "Take the time you need," Young said. "I'm not going anywhere." That afternoon, I was summoned to meet with the Queen Mother. Not requested, summoned. She was waiting in her private sitting room, elegant, formal, intimidating. She gestured for me to sit. "Miss Baptiste," she said, "we need to discuss your future." "Okay." "This scandal, these rumors, they are damaging to my son, to the monarchy, to you." "I'm aware." "I have a proposal." She slid a document across the table. "Read this." I picked it up. It was a contract, a very official-looking contract. The terms were simple. I would voluntarily withdraw from the competition. In exchange, I would receive $500,000, tax-free, plus non-disclosure agreements, glowing references, and assistance setting up my own business. $500,000 to walk away. "This is a bribe," I said quietly. "This is an opportunity, a way for you to leave with dignity and money, to avoid further scandal, to protect yourself and my son. You want me gone. I want what's best for the kingdom. And Miss Baptiste, while I respect your strength, while I appreciate what you've shown me about character and courage, I do not believe you are ready for this life, for the scrutiny, for the pressure. This scandal proves it. A scandal I didn't cause. A scandal that wouldn't exist if you weren't here." She wasn't wrong. If I'd never come on this show, if I'd never met Young, none of this would be happening. "I need to think about this," I said. "You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires." I didn't tell Young about the offer. Didn't tell anyone except Kimberly. $500,000, she whispered. Charlie, that's life-changing money. I know. You could do anything. Start your business. Help your family. Never worry about money again. I know. But you'd be giving up Young. I know. We sat in silence for a moment. What are you going to do? She asked finally. I have no idea. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. $500,000. More money than I'd ever dreamed of having. Or love. Real, genuine love with someone extraordinary. Security or uncertainty. Safety or risk. And I had 24 hours to decide which kind of person I wanted to be. Okay, I'm going to need everyone to breathe because this is a lot. Drop a comment telling me what you would choose, $500K or love, because Charlie's decision is going to change everything. Hit that subscribe button because the next chapter is the finale and you are not ready. I spent the entire next day avoiding everyone. Avoided Young, who was doing his final overnight date with Kennedy and probably having a terrible time. Avoided Kimberly, who kept looking at me like she knew something was wrong. Avoided Vivienne, who definitely knew something was wrong because producers always know. Instead, I walked through the palace gardens, thinking. Actually, I was spiraling, let's be honest. Because both options felt impossible. Take the money, and I'd be set for life. Could help my mom retire. Could pay for Daniel's med school. Could start my consulting business without worrying about failure. Could go back to my normal life, where the biggest stress was whether my client's Instagram post would get enough engagement. But I'd lose Young, and more than that, I'd lose the possibility of something extraordinary. The chance to be brave, to choose love over security, to prove that I could be more than my circumstances. Stay and I'd have love. Real, genuine. I can't imagine my life without you, love. But I'd also have scrutiny, pressure, a queen mother who thought I was unsuitable, a country that might never accept me, and a life that would never be private again. Some choice. I was sitting by the koi pond, watching fish swim in circles, which felt like a metaphor for my thoughts, when someone sat down next to me. I looked over. The Queen Mother. Your Majesty, I said, starting to stand. Sit, her tone wasn't harsh, just firm. We need to talk. If this is about the contract. It is, but not in the way you think. She was quiet for a moment, watching the fish. When I was 23, I fell in love with a prince. Your age, actually. He was charming, handsome, and I was completely unsuitable according to his family. I was just a girl, figuring out my life. Although I came from a privileged background, we weren't financially stable then. I stared at her. You're talking about the late king. Young's father. Yes, she smiled slightly. His family offered me money to leave, a lot of money, more than I'd ever seen. They said I wasn't good enough, that I'd ruin his life, that love wasn't enough. What did you do? I took the money. My heart sank. I took the money, she continued, and I left. And for 3 months I convinced myself I'd made the right choice, that I'd been practical, smart, that love was a fairy tale and real life required sacrifice. What changed? He came after me, showed up at my door, told me he'd renounced his title, that he didn't care about being a prince if it meant losing me, that he'd rather be poor and happy than royal and miserable. She looked at me. That's when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake, that the money meant nothing compared to what I'd given up. So you went back. I went back. His family was furious, but he was the crown prince, his choice. We married. I became queen. And yes, it was hard, the scrutiny, the pressure, the constant judgment. But Miss Baptiste, she took my hand. I would make the same choice again every time because love, real love, is worth fighting for. Then why are you offering me money to leave? Because I needed to know what kind of woman you are, whether you'd take the easy path or the brave one, whether you love my grandson enough to choose him over security. She squeezed my hand. But I see now that I was wrong. You're not like the others. You're like me, brave enough to be terrified and choose love anyway. I haven't chosen yet. Haven't you? She smiled. Miss Baptiste, Charlie, You chose the moment you walked away from your life and got on that plane. The moment you stood up to me at the elimination ceremony. The moment you looked at my grandson like he was the only person in the world. You've been choosing him all along. The question is whether you're ready to admit it. I will be waiting for your decision. After she left, I sat by the pond for another hour. Then I called my mother. Baby, you okay? I saw the news. Mom, I need advice. Okay, talk to me. So I told her everything. The contract, the money, the impossible choice. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. What does your gut say? She asked finally. My gut says take the money. Be practical, be smart. And your heart? My heart says stay. Fight. Choose love even though it's terrifying. Then you already know what to do. But Mom, $500,000 is a lot of money, I know. And baby, if you take it, I won't judge you. You've got to make the choice that's right for you. But let me ask you something. In 5 years, what are you going to regret more? Taking the money and wondering what if? Or choosing love and knowing you were brave enough to try? I closed my eyes. The money, I'd regret taking the money. Then there's your answer. What if it doesn't work out? What if I choose him and then we break up and I'm left with nothing? Then you'll have nothing except the knowledge that you were brave enough to choose love. And baby, that's worth more than any amount of money. That's how you know you're alive. You take the risk. You jump. You trust that it's worth it. After we hung up, I went to find Vivienne. I need to see the Queen Mother, I said. Now. The Queen Mother received me in the same sitting room. The contract was still on the table. Have you made your decision? She asked. I picked up the contract, held it for a moment. Then I tore it in half. I'm staying, I said. I'm choosing Di-young, I'm choosing love, and I'm choosing to be brave enough to believe that I can do this, that I can be what he needs, what this kingdom needs. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd ever seen from her. Good, because that contract wasn't real. What? Well, the money was real, the offer was real, but I was never going to force you to leave. I just needed to know if you would choose my grandson over security, if you love him enough to take the risk. She stood, walked over to me. And you do. So welcome to the family, Charlie Baptiste, officially. I what? Did you really think I'd let my grandson choose someone who wasn't brave enough to fight for him? I'm not that cruel. She pulled me into a hug, an actual hug. You're going to make a wonderful princess. Unconventional, yes. Controversial, perhaps, but wonderful. The final elimination ceremony was scheduled for that evening. Down to the final 3, me, Kennedy, and Kimberly. Kimberly pulled me aside before we went in. I'm dropping out, she said. What, Kim, no. It's okay. This was always about exposure for me, about the experience, and I got that. Plus, she grinned, I can see the way he looks at you, the way you look at him. I'm not going to stand in the way of that. This is your love story. Let me get out of the way so you can have your ending. But the money. I'll be fine. I gained 80,000 followers from this show. That's worth more than the money. She hugged me tight. Go get your prince, Cinderella. You've earned it. So when the ceremony started, when Di-young stood up to make his speech, Kimberly stepped forward first. Your Highness, she said, I need to withdraw from the competition. You're an amazing man, but you're not my destined man. And I think we both know who you're going to choose. She looked at me, winked, and left. That left 2 of us. Me and Kennedy. Di-young looked nervous, actually nervous. His hands were shaking slightly as he held the final rose. This has been the most extraordinary experience of my life, he said. I came into this show reluctantly, resentfully even. I didn't want to be here, didn't want to find love on television, didn't believe it was possible. Kennedy smiled confidently. But then I met someone who changed everything. Someone who was honest when everyone else was performing, who made me laugh when I wanted to take everything too seriously, who saw me, really saw me, not the prince, not the crown, but the person underneath. He looked directly at me. Someone brave enough to be herself in a world that demanded she be perfect. Kennedy's smile faltered. Charlie Baptiste, Di-young said, stepping forward. Will you accept this rose? The room erupted. Kennedy's expression went from confused to furious in approximately 2 seconds. "This is a mistake," she hissed as she walked past me. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but it's my mistake to make." Di-young was standing in front of me now, holding the rose, smiling like I was the only person in the world. "Yes," I said. I accept the rose. I accept you. I accept all of this, even though it's terrifying and I have no idea what I'm doing." "Good," he said, "because I don't know what I'm doing either, but I know I want to figure it out with you." He pulled me close, kissed me in front of cameras and producers, and his mother and the entire world. And I finally understood what my mom meant. This was what being alive felt like. Brave and terrified, and absolutely certain all at once. But we weren't done. Because the actual finale where Di-young was supposed to propose, was still a week away. "What happens now?" I asked Vivienne after the ceremony. "Now comes the hard part," she said. "The final week, planning the proposal, preparing for the engagement, and dealing with the media circus that's about to descend." She wasn't kidding. The next morning, my face was on every news site, every tabloid, every social media platform. Some headlines were positive. "Love wins. Charlie Baptiste chosen as future crown princess of Hanseong." "Modern monarchy. Prince Di-young chooses love over tradition." Others were less positive. "Unsuitable. Palace insiders question choice of American commoner." "Gold digger GTS her crown. How Charlie Baptiste manipulated her way to the top." And then there were the social media responses. Thousands of them. Millions, actually. People who loved us. People who hated us. People who thought we were couple goals. People who thought I was ruining the monarchy. It was overwhelming. But through it all, Di-young was there, holding my hand, reminding me that their opinions didn't matter, that we knew the truth. "How do you deal with this?" I asked one night as we scrolled through particularly vicious comments. "The constant judgment, the scrutiny. I remember why I'm doing this, who I'm doing it for, and I focus on that instead of the noise." He took my phone, set it aside. "Charlie, you're going to have to develop thick skin. This is only going to get worse when we're actually engaged, when you're actually crown princess." "I know, but it's hard. These people don't know me. They don't know us. They're judging based on tabloid headlines and edited TV footage." "Then we show them who we really are. We live authentically. We love openly. We prove them wrong by being exactly who we are." "That's very inspiring. Have you been practicing?" "Only every day since I met you." The final day arrived. The proposal was going to be filmed at sunset, in the palace gardens, with minimal crew. Just enough to capture the moment, but not so many that it felt like a production. I was wearing a dress that Vivienne had chosen, elegant wrapped golden silk dress. My hair was in loose curls, minimal makeup that enhanced my beauty. I looked like myself, just a more polished version. Di-young was waiting in the gardens, wearing a traditional Korean hanbok in black and gold. He looked like he'd stepped out of a historical drama, or a fantasy novel, or my dreams. When I walked up, he smiled. That real, genuine smile that made my heart stop. "Hi," I said. "Hi," he took my hands. I had a whole speech planned, poetic, romantic, but now that you're here, I can't remember any of it. "That's okay, I like improvisation," I whispered. "Good, because here's the truth. I didn't want to be on this show. I didn't want to find love on television. I didn't believe it was possible. But then I met you, and you changed everything. You made me laugh. You challenged me. You saw past the crown to the person underneath. And Charlie, I've never been more certain of anything in my life than I am of this." He got down on one knee. I stopped breathing. "Charlie Baptiste," he said, pulling out a ring. A huge, stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds that somehow managed to be both traditional and modern. "I love you. I love your strength, your humor, your courage. I love the way you make me want to be better, braver, more honest. And I want to spend the rest of my life making you laugh, supporting your dreams, and building a future together. Will you marry me?" I was crying. The kind of crying where you can't breathe and your makeup is definitely ruined. "Yes," I managed. "Yes, of course, yes. I love you so much and I'm terrified, but I'm choosing you anyway because you're worth it and this is worth it and... He kissed me before I could finish rambling. When we pulled apart, we were both crying and laughing, and the cameras were rolling, and none of it mattered because this was real. This was us. The episode aired 2 weeks later. Shanice hosted a watch party at the apartment. My mom flew in. Daniel came. Half my college friends. We crammed into the living room with pizza and wine and way too many feelings. And we watched as my life, my actual life, played out on national television. The proposal scene was beautiful. The editing was perfect. The music swelled at exactly the right moments. They made me look good, I said, watching myself cry on screen. Baby, you are good, my mom said. They just showed the truth. After the episode ended, my phone exploded. Texts from friends, former coworkers, people I hadn't talked to in years. And then a call from an unknown number. I answered, hello. Miss Baptiste, this is the Royal Communications Office of Hanseong. We're calling to schedule your first official appearance as Crown Princess-to-be. Would you be available next Tuesday? I looked at Shanice, at my mom, at the life I'd built in Brooklyn. And then I thought about Di-young, about the future we were going to build together. Yes, I said, I'm available, let's do this. Epilogue, 6 months later. The coronation of Crown Princess Charlie of Hanseong was the most watched royal event in history. Not because of the spectacle, though there was plenty of that. Not because of the celebrities who attended, though there were a lot of those too. But because people wanted to see if the girl from Brooklyn could actually pull it off. If she could wear the crown without it wearing her. Well, spoiler alert, turns out that I could wear the crown with grace. The ceremony was traditional, centuries-old rituals, elaborate costumes, more protocol than I ever thought possible. But I made it through without tripping, without crying, and without accidentally starting a diplomatic incident. The bar was low, but I exceeded it. Di-young stood next to me through the whole thing, occasionally squeezing my hand when the formality got to be too much. And when it was over, when the crown was officially on my head and I was officially crown princess, he leaned over and whispered, still terrified. Absolutely, I whispered back, you. Every day, but I'm terrified with you, that's what matters. We walked out onto the palace balcony to wave at the crowds below. Thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands, all of them watching us. And you know what? It was still terrifying. But it was also extraordinary. Because I was brave enough to choose love over security. Brave enough to believe I could be more than my circumstances. Brave enough to become a princess, even though I had no idea what I was doing. And if a girl from Brooklyn could do that, turns out that she could do anything. The end. Thank you so much for watching. If you loved Charlie and Di-young's story, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button. And tell me, what story should I tell next? Royal romance? Billionaire romance? Enemies to lovers? Comment below and let me know. See you in the next story.